What if Edward betrayed Bella's heart? Part 4. Since Bella had come back into my life, I finally had a reason to get up in the morning. I had a reason to have a smile on my face. I had a reason to feel like the luckiest son of a bitch in the world. I also had a raging libido. And since I wasn't going to push her or rush into anything too fast, I had to take matters into my own hands, literally. It all started when I was in the shower taking care of business when I heard my phone chiming on the bed. I had to stop pumping for a moment and try to breathe normally while I debated what to do. I could jump out of the shower and run, soaking wet with a painful hard-on, to get my phone, which was sitting on the bed in my room. My other option was, I could stay in the shower and continue loving myself, then dry my body, solving the hard-on problem and the wet problem. Also, I wouldn't slip on the tiles and rip my dick off. The last seemed like the better option. I worked my hand double time knowing this had to be quick, and my mind formed different scenarios which ended in me taking Bella over various surfaces. But even my dream Bella, the one that was begging me to love her, did the real Bella justice. She was so beautiful. I could feel myself nearing the end when my fantasy became a nightmare. "Eddie baby, you look tense," Tanya's voice purred in my mind. "Why don't we relieve it?" "Don't worry, it'll be over soon," Irina whispered. "No, get away," I shouted and tried to scramble away on instinct. My chest heaved as I fell back out of the shower and landed on the cold tiles, a bit stunned at what had happened. When I realized I'd had an episode, I just lay there for a while, disappointed because this had never happened before. Oliver said it might, but I thought that this was one thing I was strong enough not to give into to. Apparently, I was wrong. A few minutes passed before I finally got my naked ass off the floor and called Oliver about my incident. He told me not to worry, that it was a good thing. It has to get worse before it gets better. I thought he was full of shit. But maybe I was just frustrated. After that, I got to my cell phone and saw Bella had been the caller who had distracted me from my shower. What made me worry though was the fact she'd tried to call twice and she'd left messages. Normally she never left messages, only ever sending me a text to call her. Edward listened to me carefully. She screamed into the receiver as I replayed the message. She seemed frantic with worry. "Get out of Washington. He's on his way to castrate you. He found out. He knows about us. Actually, I told him and I'm sorry, he didn't take it well. He's on his way to kill you. You need to leave, now." She shouted and the message ended. I was panicking and the room seemed to be spinning. James had found me. He was coming to kill me, and if Bella knew, that must have meant she'd come into contact with him. Get Bella safe. Have to get Bella safe. That was all that was running through my mind. I needed to make sure my mistakes didn't impact Bella again. "Bella, pick up the fucking phone," I shouted as tears began to blur my vision. I was beyond terrified now, but not for me, for her. If anything happened to Bella, I didn't even want to think it. She wasn't answering and I was beginning to fear the worst. I hung up, threw on some pants and ran for my keys, intent on driving around town like a maniac until I found her and got her safe. I have to get Bella safe. As I made my way out the door, I tried her cell another time and a voice said it was engaged. Could she be talking to him? What was she doing messing around like this? "One last time. Come on, answer me, baby. I need to know you're okay," I said to myself as I called her cell one more time, turning my keys in the ignition of my car. "Edward," she answered, and I felt the breath I hadn't even realized I'd been holding rush out of me. "Bella, love, what's wrong? You called me, fucking shouting something about getting out of Washington, and you didn't pick up the first 2 times I called." I was going out of my mind. "Are you okay? Where are you? I'm coming to get you." "Where are you?" she asked randomly. I was beyond frustrated with her, and if I was honest, I was scared shitless. "I'm at my parents' home, Bella." "Why? You're scaring me. Please tell me you're okay," I begged, only wanting her safe from harm and not caring about anything else. A police cruiser pulled into my driveway and I was about to shout at her to tell me she was fine before anyone took me away from her. If I had to kill someone to make sure James Trekker stayed away from her, I would. "Edward, listen to me, my dad's on his way to your house. I told him about us and he freaked out. He has a loaded gun and a bullet with your name on it. You need to leave now." Everything suddenly clicked into place. She hadn't been talking about James. Charlie was the one coming to castrate me. Oh, thank God. I'd never thought I'd say it, but I was so relieved Charlie Swan was coming to kill me instead of James. At least he wouldn't hurt Bella, and that was all that mattered. The chief got out of his cruiser, looking angry as hell, but minus a gun. I knew he wouldn't kill me. He was an officer, for Christ's sake, but I was willing to bet he had no problem with kicking the shit out of me to show me who's boss. Well, that explains why your father just pulled into my driveway, I replied, the realization that I was about to get a serious beating finally setting in. He won't kill you, she blurted suddenly and not at all convincingly. He's all bark and no bite. Either way, I'm about to get my ass kicked. I'll call you back. I love you, Bella. I hung up before she could say anything. This was going to happen one way or another, I knew that for certain. But I figured her thinking about it was better than her actually witnessing or hearing it. I took a breath and went to face the chief. Chief Swan, what can I do you for? I asked in the most pleasant voice I could summon as I stood out of the car. I stayed a few steps away from him in case he got straight to the point and kicked my ass. Even though I was glad he was here instead of James, didn't mean I welcomed a beating. Going to try escape, were you, boy? He smiled wickedly. No sir. Bella left me a strange message and I thought she was hurt. I was going to go to her when you pulled in. Charlie's eyes narrowed. It was hard to remember the times when Charlie Swan had actually liked me. It seemed so long ago when he used to call me, son, instead of, boy, or, asshole. I used to come to his house and watch baseball with him while I waited for Bella to finish her homework. Several times he came to Thanksgiving dinner with Bella, when he didn't glare at me the entire time. I missed those days, but I wasn't so naive as to think I would ever get them back. Stay away from Bella, he shouted, the don't fuck with me vein popping out of his forehead and his face going red with fury. I can't do that, I answered honestly and in a calm tone, never letting my eyes leave his. I love her. You don't fucking love her. You lost her and now you want what you can't have. You may have fucked with my little girl once before, but I will never let that happen again. Do you hear me, asshole? Never again. As I stared at this man, and he glared back, I understood that behind this hard facade he was putting up, he was just a guy. A guy who had watched his little girl grow and then saw her shrink again right in front of his eyes. Both times had been because of me. I'd married Bella, promised her everything and then failed her completely. The way he saw it, I was setting Bella up to knock her down again. As a father, he couldn't let that happen. How dare you even think? Charlie, I'm sorry. I interrupted him mid-rant and he stopped to stare at me. What, did you just say you're sorry? He asked in disbelief. But before he could get another breath to shout abuse at me, I stopped him again. I'm sorry I hurt her after I took her away from you and promised to keep her safe. I'm sorry I gave you my word and I broke it. I know you hate me and you have the right to beat the ever-living shit out of me for everything I've done, but even if you do, it's not going to change anything. I love her and I'm not leaving her if I can help it. Whatever the divorce papers may say to me, it's still, till death do us part. I told him in a sure voice and he stared at me with a scrutinizing gaze, like he thought I had some ulterior motive and he was trying to figure it out. You're nothing. Once she sees you haven't changed, she'll leave you. The chief was good. He knew exactly what buttons to press to make me angry. You're wrong. I have changed. I shouted, losing my cool completely. Oh, because when I look at you dickwad, all I see is the lying sack of shit that made Bella lose everything. I had to fight to hold on to my control and not pounce at him like I really wanted to do. First of all, Bella would never forgive me and secondly, Charlie would probably win that fight. That might be what you see but it's obviously not what Bella sees. She loves me as much as I love her and the only reason you're here today is because you know she won't budge on this. You're hoping that, if you scare me enough, I'll back off. The look on his face told me every word I had said was true. Bella and I had come too far to let anything stand in our way though. I wasn't giving up now when we were so close to going the distance again. I've seen pretty scary things when I was in Chicago. The scariest was that I became something I wasn't and I hated it. It was all because I was impressionable and depressed and I didn't have Bella to remind me who I really was. I've come a long way from being that guy and I won't become him again, Bella's helping me not to. So don't you dare think you can change my mind. Bella is my forever. Only she has the power to change that. There was a dead silence between both of us, and the phrase, "if looks could kill," was running through my mind. Finally he sighed. That one sigh said more than any words could. He was giving in. He knew that there was nothing more he could do, but advise Bella to stay away from me. However, even he knew that wasn't going to work. "If you so much as make her cry, I will hunt you down, Cullen. You will regret the day you were born. Understand me?" Charlie ground out through gritted teeth. "I understand," I answered and held out my hand for him to shake. Surprisingly, he took my hand in his firm grip, and I thought, this is new ground. He doesn't have to like me, but maybe he can respect me. That thought was soon flying out of my head as his fist made contact. I think I blacked out for a moment because I couldn't understand what had happened until I felt another fist collide with my face. I hit the floor in a matter of seconds, and I lay there, accepting this as punishment for failing Bella the first time. He didn't hit me again. This time he only gave me a warning before departing. That's for hurting Bella in the first place, and the second one was for pissing me off. Think about this pain always and remember it. You'll feel a hell of a lot more if you ever hurt her again. With that he left me, bloodied and sore, in the driveway of my parents' house. I must have slipped in and out of consciousness because for a while I swore I had gone back in time. I was really freaking out. How do I do this without getting killed or shitting my pants? That was the main question. It sounded simple in my mind. All I had to do was go inside and say, "Hey Charlie, can I marry your daughter?" Then it would be done and I'd be free to skip down the aisle with Bella. But actually doing it in real life, going to the chief while he cleans his shotgun in front of me and then asking to whisk his only daughter away for life, was a lot harder to get out than it seemed. That was why I found myself standing at Charlie Swan's house, a nervous wreck and altogether pussy. He loves me like a son already, he won't shoot me. I reminded myself as I marched up the steps of the porch, reminding myself that I had to do this if I wanted to start my life with Bella. One breath, two breaths, and knock. "You can do this," I chanted as the door eased open and a bright smile lit Charlie's face once he saw me. "Edward, good to see you, son. You're just in time, the game is only after starting." Charlie clapped me on the back and ushered me inside and onto the couch, practically forcing me to have a beer with him. Finally, when he sat down, I worked up my nerve. I actually came here for a reason. Not to watch the game, and it's kind of important. Charlie stared at me intently for a while, making me gulp nervously. "Is it hot in here? She's pregnant, isn't she?" Charlie blurted and began ranting before I could correct him. "I knew this would happen if I let you two live together, but Bella convinced me she was mature enough not to get knocked up." "Mature enough my ass. I told her what men are like, no offense to you, Edward. I hope to God you two both have a plan, because there is only so far your parents and I can take you. Plus I already raised a kid, I'll babysit for you now and then, but there's no way in hell I'm doing all that again." No, I rushed out. "Bella's not pregnant, Charlie." You could see him visibly relax at my words and breathe a sigh of relief. "Phew," he threw his head back dramatically. "You nearly gave me a heart attack, son. You're both way too young for that kind of commitment. You both have a bright future ahead of you, especially you, kid. You'll be the finest lawyer Forks has ever had, if you're both smart about your lives." Charlie warned, and I blushed a little at his compliment. "Thanks," I mumbled, before clearing my throat. "Speaking of commitment, you know I love Bella so very much and we've been together for a while now." "Well, sir, I want her heart, body and soul. Well, not that I only want her body for sex, because I would never do that to her, but I don't get me wrong, I'm attracted to her physically also. It's not only about that though, because I want her for like children later, way later in our lives. I love her a lot. So what I'm trying to say is that I really want Bella, heart, body and soul. Shit, did I say that already?" I rambled, letting my nerves get the better of me. I saw Charlie was just sitting there, looking at me with a raised eyebrow. I knew I was making a mess of the whole speech. I tried to save myself but ended up digging myself in deeper. I decided to shut the hell up when I got to how I would always buy her tampons in the store when she asked me to. Wishing I could die of embarrassment, I sat in the armchair, silence filling the room, with my hands covering my burning face. I couldn't even look at Charlie for what he must think of me now. Edward, his gruff voice called. What the hell are you trying to say? I want to marry Bella. I blurted out and finally looked at him, wide-eyed. He sat there unmoving for a moment before the corners of his mouth tugged upwards. I wondered for a moment if he was going to leave me without an answer just to torture me for being a moron and not asking the question like a normal human being. Okay, he said, and stood up to shake my hand. Okay, yes, you can marry my little girl, he stated, and I looked at him in total shock. He had actually said yes after the load of crap I'd just delivered him. You're like a son to me already, Edward, and above all others, I trust you to take care of her. I had never felt so completely honored in my entire life. He was trusting me with her, his most prized possession, not that women are possessions, of course, and I would try my very best never to let Bella or him down. I would be the best husband I could possibly be for Bella. I promise I'll take care of her. I'm going to hold you to that promise, son. It'll break my heart if you break hers. He smiled and clapped me on the back again before we sat back down to watch Sports Center. When I woke up in my driveway, it took me a good 3 minutes to remember where I was and how I got here. The only thing I really knew the entire time I lay on the cement was, Charlie Swan was a saint, for not killing me. As I sat at my desk on a miserable Monday morning, I couldn't help but let my mind wander to all the incredibly dirty things I could be doing to Edward instead of sitting here. I was thinking of how great he made me feel every night we were together, and how only 2 days had turned us into a couple of horny teenagers, frantic with need. It sucked that work had to burst my Edward bubble. What's on your mind, monkey butt? Riley asked in a stupid voice as he came to perch himself on my desk. A Home Alone 3 reference. What are we, 5? No, but you seem to know it well enough to understand my reference. You also seemed depressed and I wanted to cheer you up. He answered and I sighed, giving him an I'm sorry look, because I was letting my shitty mood get the better of me. Is there anything I can do to lift your spirits? Riley was such a good friend. I was sorry that every time he saw me, there was always Edward stuff going on. He didn't let it bother him though, he wanted to help me with whatever was going on. It's nothing, but thanks for caring enough to ask. I gave him an appreciative smile. What kind of office neighbor would I be if I didn't care? He plopped a cup of coffee down on my desk with a wink and a friendly grin. A bad one, that's what. Hey, I forgot to ask last time, did Edmund escape your dad? Edward, I corrected, picking up the coffee. He shrugged in return. And yeah, he got an ass whooping, but that's about it. I'm sorry again if I imposed on you that day. I know you weren't in a good place. Riley shook his head and dropped his eyes. I noticed he was fidgeting and he looked altogether nervous. Don't, it's me who should be apologizing to you. Bella, I have something to tell you, something big. How big are we talking? I asked hesitantly. Something so big that it could ruin our friendship. Ruin our friendship? Was Riley working for Tanya as well? It wouldn't surprise me if she'd gotten rid of Shelley Cope just so she could place another spy in my life. She had stooped to the lowest level to get Edward to sleep with her. What was ruining his life further to her? What? I asked and spied Kate giving me a get the fuck back to work look. Actually, maybe we could talk about this after work, Kate's glaring at us. I turned around and mouthed a sorry to Kate, who nodded and walked away. She was a bit more lenient with me than she was with the others, considering what Lauren had put me through. I didn't know if I liked it or not. I wanted to be treated like everyone else, not be given any special treatment. It's like being the teacher's pet in school. Yeah, Riley blurted and nodded fervently. It's sort of a heavy discussion anyway. It can wait until after work. So yeah, have a good day, Bella. The day went by slowly from then on. Each minute seemed to be never ending. Edward texted me and asked how my day was going and what time he should pick me up. To say he was a little concerned, when I told him I was staying back to talk to a guy I suspected was working for Tanya, was an understatement. But he knew it had to be done. Didn't mean he liked it though. Needless to say, Riley and I didn't speak much for the rest of the day, or make contact of any sort. I was beginning to think my suspicion was correct and that he had something to do with Tanya. If he did admit he was another person working for Tanya, mob family or no mob family, I was going to kill that bitch. It made me so angry that she thought she could get away with everything she had done and was still doing. It also hurt that Riley, Angela and Ben would all betray me so easily like that for money or whatever else she was offering, or threatening. I hadn't even considered that she may be threatening them the way she did with Edward. By lunchtime I was livid, even though I wasn't sure yet whether Riley had sold out or not. Just when I thought I had one fucking friend. Hello. I all but snarled into the phone when it rang. Whoa, who shoved the stick and how far did it go? Rosalie's voice asked. Shut it, Rose. It's one of those days. Yeah, I had one of those days last week. It was awesome. Emmett and I had the best angry sex ever, 4 times. Let's just say the hood of my BMW needed a thorough cleaning after we were done. Have you ever heard of a filter? I don't believe I have. Besides, it's not my fault you're a prude. If only she knew. Whatever, slut. I teased and let out a small giggle. Rose always knew how to cheer me up. Anyway, is there a reason you called, or did you only want to tell me about your sex life? Actually yes, I wanted to know whether you and Edward want to come to our house for dinner tomorrow night. Emmett wants to put all of what happened truly behind us and move forward. Rosalie stated as I tried to figure out whether this was Emmett putting words in her mouth or if she really wanted us to come over. It depends. Depends. Depends on what? She snapped, as if I'd insulted her by not accepting immediately. If it's only Emmett who wants us to come over, then I really don't think we should. I'd love to if you both wanted us to move forward. But I see no point if it's going to start another war. We only got through one of those and I don't think I'd make it through another one. I value our friendship too much for that. I told her honestly, wanting her to know where I stood in all this. I don't think or our friendship, would survive it either. I wouldn't have asked if I wasn't sure Edward and I could at least be civil with each other, for your sake anyway. I was positively beaming after that, wishing she was here so I could hug her for being so awesome. I felt like we'd both grown after our fight. We both knew the consequences of our fighting. The people we cared about got hurt, we said things we regretted, and we became people we weren't. We didn't want a repeat of that. We'll be there then. Thanks for this, Rose, and thank Emmett for me as well. I really appreciate it and I'm sure Edward will too. I'm glad I have such amazing friends. I love you, Rosie. I knew getting sappy made her uncomfortable, but I couldn't help it. Whatever, bitch, she dismissed, but I could hear the smile in her words. Whatever, slut, I replied through giggles as we said our goodbyes and I got back to work. Riley was late after work ended. I had no idea where he'd gone. I was beginning to worry and Edward was altogether freaking out. You shouldn't be there by yourself with him, it's not safe. I'll come and wait with you and I'll hide somewhere, under a desk or something, so he won't even see me. Edward, I'll be fine. There are cameras everywhere and I'll be at the entrance of the building. He can't do anything to me without someone seeing it. Riley is not that stupid. I assured him and it seemed to calm him down a bit. Edward was waiting in a parking lot about 2 blocks up the street. I knew he was worried, but I needed to talk to Riley alone, and if he saw Edward, he would bolt. I wouldn't blame him if he did. If Edward found out Riley was working for Tanya, I don't know what he'd do, but whatever it was, it wouldn't be pretty. Stay there, Edward. I'm fine, I swear. I'll be with you in 10 minutes, and if you leave that car whatsoever and scare him off, so help me God, I trailed off. Fine, he snapped and added a quick, but be careful. I hung up the phone just as Riley came out the entrance of the agency. Sorry I'm late. Kate was talking to me and I lost track of time. He rushed out as I waited for him to explain why I was here. He seemed to notice and got straight to the point. I know you've probably wondered why I asked you to meet me here. Damn straight. Well, Bella, do you remember the day you called me because your boyfriend, he spat the word, was in trouble? I wondered what the hell this had to do with anything. Yeah, your girlfriend left you and you were upset, I remember that. What does this have to do with anything? My girlfriend didn't leave me, I left her. Since I met you I haven't been able to sleep with a woman, let alone have a relationship with anyone without thinking of you. You've bewitched me, I can't think of anything but you. I'm in love with you, Bella. He blurted out with a raised voice. When he was done, he breathed a sigh of relief, like he was glad to finally get it off his chest. Then when I'd gone through girlfriend number 5, the third brunette I'd laid eyes on in some bar, hoping she would get you out of my mind, you called me. He paused then continued, I'd thought as soon as I saw your number, it's fate. She needs me. I nearly got sick when you said you needed me to help save your boyfriend. I had no idea of all this, but now he said it, I felt like a fool for missing it this whole time. All the coffees he brought me in the morning, how he'd always go out of his way to help me, it wasn't because he wanted my friendship at all. Well, at least it's not about Tanya. I knew I needed to let him down gently. The question was, how do I go about doing that? Riley, I'm sorry if I led you on. It was unconsciously done, I assure you. But I'm sorry, regardless. I didn't know you felt this way. Don't try sparing my feelings. You either want me or you don't. I want you, I started before I continued. But not in the way you're offering. You're a good friend, though I'm afraid that's all we can ever be. I'm in love with Edward. Riley avoided making eye contact, alternating between looking at the sky or his shoes, but never for more than a minute or so. I was truly sorry that he felt so strongly for me, but I couldn't even fathom my life without Edward. I wouldn't leave him for anyone. I'm sorry, I repeated. It is the way it is. He nodded, but his eyes remained downcast. I know. You love your boyfriend too much to ever consider leaving him. I just hope he treats you with the kindness you deserve. My eyes stung a little bit. He seemed so vulnerable and sad. I wanted to reach out and hug him, however I knew it would only give him false hope. He does, and I know you'll find someone like that too. Thank you, he murmured before finally lifting his eyes. So, this is the end then. Even though I knew that he had strong feelings for me, still I didn't want to end our friendship if I could help it. Riley was a good guy and a loyal friend, I didn't want to lose him. It doesn't have to be. We can still be friends. I offered, and a smile tugged in the corner of his mouth. I'll take any part of you I can get, he smiled. I was a block away from the parking lot when I spotted Edward sprinting down the street. He breathed a sigh of relief when he saw me. Thank God, he collected me in his arms and kissed every part of me he could reach. Are you okay? What happened? He didn't even give me time to answer before he grabbed my arms and smashed his lips against mine. He was kissing me slowly, as if telling me with his lips how much he cared, his tongue swirling with mine and making me forget my own name. His teeth nibbled on my bottom lip before he pulled away and kissed my forehead. I was so worried, I couldn't sit in the car any longer, thinking you might be in danger. I was coming to get you. I'm fine, I assured him for what seemed to be the millionth time. I was wrong, it was nothing. He isn't working for Tanya after all. Edward's brow furrowed and his hand trailed my cheek. It was almost as if he couldn't stop himself from touching me. What did he want then? I racked my brain thinking of what to tell him. I could hear my inner monologue saying, the awkward moment when you have to tell your boyfriend your friend is madly in love with you. In the end I resolved to tell him the truth, remembering that he had promised to be honest with me about all things, incidents included. I owed it to him to do the same now. Do you promise you won't get mad or jealous? I asked, and that brought a look of confusion on his face. He nodded in agreement and I continued, Riley, he wanted to tell me that he's in love with me. He wanted me to give him chance. I muttered, not looking to see his reaction because I was a coward. I only registered Edward had begun to march down the street when I heard him growl, where is he? Edward, stop, I plead, going after him and taking hold of his arm, effectively halting his advances. I lifted his clenched fist up to place a soft kiss on it, in an effort to calm him down. You promised, I reminded him. I did not worry myself to death so that son of a bitch could make a play at my girlfriend. He roared and got out of my grip to continue his long strides down the street. He was ready to start a brawl over something stupid. Edward, I screamed, trying to stop him and thanking God there was no one around to witness this shouting match. Fine, get yourself beat up again. I won't be there when my dad has to arrest you for assault. That stopped him in his tracks and he let out a frustrated growl before he glided back up to me and took my hand in his, pulling me with him back to the car. I almost had to run to keep up with his pace. We didn't speak the whole way to the car, but finally broke the silence halfway through our journey home as we entered the forest road that led to my apartment on the outskirts of Forks. If he so much as touched you, give it a rest. He didn't do anything. He said he loved me, I said I loved you, we agreed to be friends. That's all that happened. I don't know why you're being so possessive all of a sudden. Because I love you and today I went out of my goddamn mind with worry. He shouted, his nostrils flaring and his eyes scorching. Pull over, I yelled. I'm not pulling OV. Pull over, I insisted. Fine, he yelled as he pulled into the side of the deserted road. I unclasped my seat belt and crawled over so I could take his face in my hands. I am yours, Edward. Do you think I would ever let someone take me away from you? I love you. His eyes bore into mine and his breathing was still heavy as he too released his seat belt. He stared at me intently before he clashed his lips against mine. He didn't need words to tell me what he was feeling. His kiss said everything. I'm yours, take me. And take me, he did. By the time we had finished I had a shredded shirt and just fucked hair. Though there hadn't really been any fucking. But you know what? Totally worth it. If we get caught by the police chief for fooling around in a public place, it'll be worth it. Edward smiled, reading my mind. Rose was right. Angry orgasms are the best. You're going to kill me, he panted as his fingers brought me tighter towards his naked frame. I used to be handiest wearing my white cotton panties adventurous, proper. So the sensation of his pores and skin on mine became driving me crazy. It really is why, for now anyway, whilst Edward became naked in a room with me, I made the rule that my panties could live on. Due to the fact I used to be already way too tempted. Who is aware of what I would do to that man without a boundary to stop me? Oh, the opportunities. We would not want that to appear, I said in a sultry tone as I moved to straddle him. You're some distance too pretty to waste. I allow my lips go with the flow down to softly touch his. I stored it to a chaste kiss. 1 page C.2 pecs 3 pecs and, whoa. I controlled to get out before I was pinned on my lower back with Edward above me. He deepened the kiss. His tongue ran alongside my backside lip seeking permission to enter and I used to be too a ways long gone to mention no. My arms located their way into his unruly auburn hair as his palms slid up the out of doors of my thighs. I love you, Bella. Edward, I sighed, and it became heavy with lust and frustration. What do you need, infant? You, I want all of you. Soon, Bella, I promise I'll take you quickly. The party's only some weeks away, he breathed onto my chest, causing me to shiver in pride and Edward to smirk. I like how responsive your frame is to me. Each contact. He kissed me once more, as though to prove his factor, and I could not stop the moan that slipped beyond my lips as our tongues tangled. All of a sudden an alarm sounded on my phone. No, I used to be seriously approximately to cry then die of sexual frustration. What is wrong? What's the alarm for? We must get equipped to go to Rose and M's now. I wanted extra Edward time. We will cancel then, Edward whispered, coming back up to nibble on my ear. We cannot cancel whilst they are doing this for us. They want to be extra accepting and put every person's bullshit behind us. Edward attempted to provide me the puppy dog eyes however sighed while he found out it wasn't getting him anywhere with me. Quality, he grumbled as he crossed his hands and rolled onto his return far from me. However we are persevering with this while we get lower back. My dad and mom are long gone and it's each guy's dream to christen his youth bed. We will retain this at my apartment afterwards, since your mother and father ought to come home at any time. In which are they besides? I asked ultimately. Due to the fact the moment I stepped within the door tonight, Edward had dragged me away like a possessed man. They are in Seattle for the night. Dad has a scientific conference and mother went with him. We've got the house to ourselves all night lengthy. Is it just me or does this feel like the old days once more? We should wait till your moms and dads are long passed out till we will idiot around. I giggled. You're right, Edward chuckled before he licked his bottom lip and starvation flashed in his eyes. However returned then I didn't definitely realize what you favored. Now I recognize your frame. I know what makes you hot and bothered. I know where to touch you, he whispered deliciously grimy matters into my ear and I used to be in reality panting by the point he became finished. My frame become on fireplace and he knew precisely what he became doing to me. He was looking to torture me. You will pay for that. I warned him as I hopped away from bed and stormed into the rest room, leaving him chuckling at the back of me. I knocked onto the front door 2 times before I became to Edward. No combating, no evil glares and no name calling. Bella, I hate Rosalie and she or he hates me. We both take into account that it's a mutual dislike. We've come to a knowledge, because we love you and Emmett and want to make each of you happy. The whole thing can be notable. I leaned closer to him and he appeared to get the trace, coming down to my degree so I could give him a short kiss before we went interior. And our quick percent soon turned into a game of tongue tornado. I advised you we could not leave them on my own for a second or they had be fucking. Rosalie laughed as she stood in the doorway. I hadn't even realized she'd been status there. Shut up. I laughed as a blush blanketed my face and I pulled her in for a hug. It wasn't lengthy before large arms pulled me into their embrace. Belly bean. It has been too long, Emmett boomed as he squeezed the existence out of me. Emmett, stop. You will harm her. Edward scolded and Emmett plopped me down onto my feet. Sorry, you understand I am a hugger. He shrugged earlier than going back to the kitchen in view that he become the chef for the night time. Emmett wasn't a splendid cook but as a minimum what he made become fit for human consumption compared to a number of the opposite creations Rose had tried to serve. Edward, Rose greeted curtly. Rosalie, he returned before I felt his hands lace with mine. I smiled at him and kissed his cheek, my gesture telling him I was happy he was seeking to get in conjunction with Rose. Thank you for having us over. What are we having by way of the manor? I asked Emmett. He responded, an exceptional top-notch mystery recipe. Edward groaned and Rosalie snorted. It is code phrase for meatballs and spaghetti. No, Edward objected with a mild smile. This is M's code phrase for giant meatballs, barely cooked spaghetti and a mountain of cheese to top it off. I heard that. Emmett's voice boomed. I supposed you too. Dinner went incredibly properly, although via the night time I observed Rose become searching at Edward and that I strangely every time we kissed or touched. She stopped after some time and that I thought it changed into weird, however I just shrugged it off. Perhaps I might ask her approximately it some other day. We ate Emmett's spaghetti monstrosity. Well, I picked at mine, due to the fact that Edward hadn't been joking. Approximately the barely cooked spaghetti are large meatballs. Whilst we have been accomplished, three folks sat around drinking wine and remembering the best old days. Edward did not drink though, seeing that he became the certain driver. It felt so ordinary. I loved it. The first-class part of the nighttime become that Edward's hand stayed in mine the whole time, his hands squeezing mine when Rose said something embarrassing approximately me or something that made me a bit mad. I took a sip of my wine just as Emmett spoke up. What's up, Eddie? Don't forget while mother located your porn collection. Edward's face turned vibrant crimson, all the way as much as the guidelines of his ears and that I spit wine anywhere. Bella obviously remembers it. Nah. You're forbidden to convey it up. Consider the dust I have on you, Swan. Edward teased, mouthing, intercourse hair, and Diego, to me earlier than I blushed scarlet. Sorry, Em, you're for your very own. Ha, Edward cried in victory. Now in case you need to talk about embarrassing moments, bear in mind while Dad determined Rose and Em having intercourse at the hood of his automobile whilst he appeared lower back on the safety tapes of the storage. What? Rosalie screamed and Emmett shot Edward a dying glare. He didn't even see something. I used to be masking your whole frame, toddler. Nicely, it really is no longer all I used to be doing to that body of yours. He winked and Rose scowled. Rose, relax and consider this. Carlisle is smoking hot, so what if he noticed you bare? See, now that's now not so terrible, is it? I shrugged and attempted to comprise my giggles while Emmett and Edward both grew to become to examine me in surprise. What? They both shouted in union. Now not that I am letting this go, Emmett. However, I ought to accept as true with Bella. Your dad is a total DILF. Rose commented. Health practitioner DILF. I corrected with a snicker. Rose and I broke out guffawing, because the men gaped at us in horror. My wife thinks my father is hot. I can't consider it. Emmett shook his head in disbelief. Oh come on. Rose and I drooled over him for the duration of excessive school each time we got here over. Do not act like you failed to be aware. I laughed as I remembered Alice screaming at us to forestall checking out her dad. I'd recognized the Cullens seeing that I used to be a toddler. I best had a mild overwhelm on Carlisle when I concept Edward turned into a poopy head and had cooties inside the first grade. Then once I found out how amazingly good-looking Edward changed into in high college, all mind of his smoking warm dad went out the window. Doesn't suggest I didn't experience the view a couple of times. Gross. Emmett shuddered as Edward sulked. It turned into funny to see Edward act like this. I would instructed him time and time again that I'd instead have one night time with him than spend the relaxation of my life with any other guy. Edward changed into it for me. Whether it involved marriage once more or no longer, even though I was nearly nice it would not, a protracted and glad existence with him would be sufficient for me. In fact it would be extra than enough, it would be the entirety. I thought of how he made me experience, each harmless and no longer so harmless alike. His touches ignited something in me, set my body aflame with lust and made me feel alive. I couldn't know, I wouldn't stay without that again. It is just disgusting, Bella. Edward whined as we made our manor home. Anything, I shrugged, smirking to myself at his little rant. It is no longer whatever. It's my father. Who occurs to be smoking warm? I added with a chortle and Edward glared. It became fun seeing him getting all riled up, not to say extraordinarily attractive. What made this even funnier turned into Edward changed into reputedly jealous of his dad. I giggled again silently. How could you sense if I stated your dad was smoking hot? He spat in a condescending tone. I might be a little involved due to the fact, 1, you're my boyfriend, and 2, I used to be pretty positive you didn't swing that manner. But I did continually surprise, I told him in mock wonder as he shot me another grimy look. Oh come on, that became humorous. Whatever, he grumbled as we pulled up out of doors the Cullens' domestic. He stood outside of the auto along with his fingers shoved in his pockets and his posture rigid. Boys, come right here. No, why don't you name my dad and ask him to kiss you in view that he's one of these DILF? Edward mumbled with disgust, however did as I asked anyway, walking closer to me. My lips at once sought his and my palms wrapped round his neck as we made out in the front of the house. Edward tasted first rate, like cola and mint. Yummy. Carlisle is warm but you have someway inherited his hotness and doubled it. Plus he's vintage and is sort of a second father to me. So, I bet I'm caught with you EILF, Edward I might like to fuck. A small smile spread on his face and he laughed softly through his nostril. Thank you Bilf and you're right, you're caught with me all the time. And usually. I completed for him and we ended up frantically grappling at every other's garments as he threw the front door open and carried me up the steps into the bedroom, my legs wrapped round his waist the complete time. Whilst we were given to the bed, Edward laid me down earlier than he stripped his own clothes off, and got here again to me. I squealed as he started out his assault on me, his arms squeezing and his lips roaming. Rip it off, I moaned as he got to my shirt. Whilst you did that within the vehicle, it became so sexy. All of sudden buttons flew everywhere and something took over me. I jumped at him and attacked him like he become the remaining drop of water inside the center of the desolate tract. My arms explored, my lips kissed and my tooth sank into his pores and skin. I used to be a piece of a vampire while it got here to Edward. Before I knew it, I used to be carrying handiest my panties and grinding up towards him till his fingers grabbed my hips to calm me. Bella, gradual down. Edward chided as my hips ground towards his again, tough and speedy. Why? I asked, not slowing my pace. Due to the fact if you do not, I might not make it to the coolest parts. He eyed me with a crooked smile and it made me blush for reasons unknown. And we've got all night time long with every different. His words one way or the other made me emotional and that is after I realized I used to be slightly greater tipsy than I realized at the beginning. We've forever. And continually. He brought with a giggle. Is that our new motto? I wager it's far. I shrugged, but couldn't prevent the silly smile from spreading across my face. I like you. As I really like you, my Bella. Now, permit me show you how lots I love you. Holly motherfucking shit, I screamed. It changed into at that moment in time that I realized, it sincerely rocked to be in love. I am now not having one. Okay, expensive. I imply it. I'm no longer doubting you. And you aren't throwing me a celebration. I warned Edward as he smiled crookedly. Bella, it's your birthday. You only get to be 26 as soon as in your whole existence. Allow celebrate it. Just because you are old, does not imply you have to try and live vicariously via me. Edward glared, but leisure danced in his eyes. I'll have you recognize as of nowadays there's simplest a year among us. Know your handiest 27 for any other 3 months and then someone, whose name starts with E, and results in, Ward, is some other step in the direction of 30. I nudged him with my elbow. You're like a male cougar already. What am I able to say? Edward chuckled as he pulled me from my spot on the sofa and onto his lap. I'm younger. He squeezed my sides and that I squirmed round his lap into a healthy of giggles. He knew I used to be extremely ticklish. Some way our little tickle fight was a kissing sport. I assume Edward won, although I wasn't complaining. I actually surely like second place. We have to do something, he breathed, smashing his lips towards mine earlier than I ought to item. I kissed him back with power till I needed to trap my breath. We may want to stay here and have birthday orgasms. I laughed at the hungry look in Edward's eyes when I spoke. He was so smooth to fuck with. No pun intended. When he realized I used to be sort of kidding, he tickled me once more for fucking with him. Don't begin something unless you wish to observe through. Edward warned, and that I giggled silently. I am taking you out this night. We're going to move the conventional direction, dinner and a movie. Sounds precise to me. You observed that sounds suitable. Wait till you notice what we're doing after, he purred seductively into my ear. My legs squeezed together in anticipation. What are we doing after? My breath hitched on the final word. I cannot let you know or it will break it. Now you have to inform me. I whined. It is going to be tremendous, and by way of the stop, you may be screaming. Promise. Oh, I promise, he chuckled. While you see what I've in shop, well, allows just say you will be very amazed. Edward took me to my favorite Italian eating place earlier than we went to look the movie. He changed into without a doubt, pulling out all of the stops, slipping the waiter a 20 and telling him to offers us a quiet spot, then ordering fancy champagne I couldn't pronounce. Although it did make me wonder something. Wherein are you getting the money to do all this? I blurted earlier than I should prevent myself. Huh, he asked. I imply. Now, not that I'm complaining, however, you don't have a process anymore. You're dwelling with Carlyle and Esme and but slipping the waiter a 20. I don't apprehend where is the cash coming from. We sat down at a table in a quiet nook behind the eating place. Well, after he got here to my apartment, I went to Tyler and he and Emmett told me to get each closing dime I had, neglect approximately all my shit in my condominium and simply skip city. Start over, he shrugged. The money is my inheritance from my grandparents, and on the time, even when I was at my worst, I as a minimum had the honor no longer to spend the cash on blow. Edward laughed bitterly regardless of himself. Edward, I tried to make an apology but he reduced me off. No, don't express regret. I'm a horrific character, Bella. I take delivery of that and I desire I could alternate the past. However, I cannot. I cannot change something that passed off. What I will do is put it at the back of me and pass on from it. His hand moved to cup my cheek as his thumb stroked it lightly. I absolutely think that you're the simplest properly a part of me. My personal parent angel. The phrases parent angel clicked in my head and my arms moved down to hint the define of my locket. The wings on the locket, because I am your mother or father angel. I stuttered in recognition as glad tears sprung in my eyes. He becomes so sweet all of the time. A small smile played on Edward's lips. You stuck me. You are greater observant than I gave you credit for. My hand persisted to play with the locket as I recalled simply what number of meanings it had and how perfectly it desirable us. He had it made for me and we were made for every other. An excellent healthy. Edward, you are incorrect, I said, and he quirked an eyebrow in return. What? Approximately you being observant. No, about you being a terrible person. Bella, he began, and that I ought to tell he turned into approximately to items, so I reduce him off. The fact on my own that you feel so much remorse for what took place handiest strengthens my perception in you. You are kind, loving, and you do anything for someone you care approximately. You're a very good man, Edward, I are aware of it, and I love you. He changed into silent for a moment as he checked out me, emotion burning in his eyes as they locked with mine. It was as though he should see straight through me, and he appreciated what he noticed. I understand I did when I checked out him. Do you need to say it, or ought to I? He smiled as he held my hand from throughout the table. You move ahead. I laughed. I really like you too, always. And forever. I'll be 2 minutes, I promise. I simply gotta take a leak. Wow, honey, no want to sugarcoat. I snickered as I walked alongside him up the Cullens' driveway. Bella, yeah, understand that you love me. He told me earlier than he swung the front door open. Happy birthday, Bella. All my buddies screamed at the tops of their voices and streams of confetti crap blew everywhere. I nearly wet myself in fright. My cheeks flamed as all people's eyes landed on me and cheers rang out. I became to glare at Edward, who turned into chuckling softly in the back of me. Informed you would be surprised and that it'd make you scream. He shrugged as he bent down and planted a chaste kiss on my pouted lips. I told you I failed to want a celebration. And I did not listen. I gave him a dirty look before I plastered a grin on my face and greeted each person. The area seemed like a nightclub, and there was no doubt in my thoughts that Alice had been the force in the back of the decorating squad. She tended to head overboard lots. Yo Smalls, what's kickin'? Seth greeted as he towered over me and engulfed me right into a hug. Significantly, the kid changed into best 17 and already he was 6'2". I felt like this type of shrimp compared to him. Hey Seth, I'm suitable and you really need to lay off the growing beans. Anything, if you weren't my sister from every other mister you will so want me. Seth typically stated me as his sister from any other mister because his mother, Sue, was courting my dad. Seth and that I had continually gotten along. It changed into his massive sister, Leah, and that I who had gotten off to a rocky start. She appeared to be okay with me now, however sometimes she might go lower back to her bitchy approaches. I tried to disregard it as fine I could. Dream on tiger, she's mine. Arms turned around my waist and that I laughed as Diego spun me round. Diego, I squealed in satisfaction as he placed me down. I hugged him to me, ecstatic to see my buddy once more. Wherein have you been, chica? I have been missing you like Loopy, and who became that satisfactory piece of guy meat? He eyed Seth hungrily from where he stood throughout the room. It really is my brother from another mom. I slapped his arm. And he is a minor, handiest 17 plus, he's not even gay. So hold your arms to yourself. It became gross having someone seek advice from Seth in a sexual manner. To me he became nevertheless that little kid who examined comic books and watched cartoons. He was like my little brother. I'll buy the minor stuff, however chica my gaydar goes off the charts with that one. And except as true with me, I'm never wrong when it comes to these things. Huh, I pondered the idea. I might in no way seen Seth with a girlfriend and he'd in no way accomplished whatever to make me suspect he is probably gay. He become always out wrestling with the men or drowsing over at Jared's who, oh my god, Seth is homosexual. Advised you. Diego shrugged as he sauntered away. I didn't have a danger to think about it. In addition, earlier than I used to be dragged away to blow out 26 candles on the largest goddamned cake I might ever seen. Then all eyes had been on me. Cameras flashed. Sue and Charlie have been telling me how proud they have been of me. Edward changed into telling me he cherished me. My phone became ringing. People were shouting at me, all at the equal time. Although I used to be flattered and honored that they cared, it turned into sufficient to pressure me loopy. I do now not experience attention. As quickly as I used to be out of the highlight and absolutely everyone became targeted at the meals being served, I slipped out the lower back door to accumulate myself and solution my silly phone. What's up, Bella? Honey, glad birthday. My mother's voice spoke softly through the receiver. Thank you, mother. It is loopy over here, you would not believe it. The Cullens threw me a large birthday party. You already know what I'm like when I'm the center of interest. I laughed awkwardly. Oh, believe me, I realize, sweetie. She giggled, probably at reminiscences of failed birthdays and tantrums. So the Cullens, huh? Your father cited you and Edward have been an item once more. You and Dad nonetheless communicate. I wondered, surprised. On every occasion I remembered them talking, it continually resulted in shouting or tears. Sure, of path we do. Your dad and that I may not be what we once were, however he's going to constantly be my pal and the father of my child. I will usually have a part of him and don't forget our time collectively, but we've moved on and you recognize what? We're better than ever. As quickly as she said that, I knew exactly where this communique become going. Do not, Mom. I tried, however she left out me. I am announcing this that will help you. Believe me after I say I understand how you are feeling, however Bella. Mother, I understand what I am doing and I am ill of anybody telling me otherwise, so stop. Sweetheart, you're nonetheless young and hung up at the fairy story existence you had together. You simply don't need it to give up, it really is all. Mom, forestall it. I love him. I was starting to get angry. And that I nonetheless love your father, I continually will. Not the way I like Edward. Honey, I have been there. With those words, I simply snapped. Snapshots ran through my mind of her on foot out the door, after which no longer seeing her for weeks afterwards. No, you have not, due to the fact you haven't been sure of anything a day on your damn life. You change jobs each 20 minutes. You would not know what it's for to work for something, because as soon as matters get difficult, you run away and try to bury it at the back of you. You left me and you left Dad, but you couldn't bury us, so you just prevented us. When turned into the closing time, you made an attempt to peer me. After my divorce, you don't know something, so to not inform me a way to feel. I come to you about a lot of factors, but relationships are not certainly one of them. I growled and she became silent. Her tattered breathing on the opposite give up made me desire I had in no way uttered a single word. And once I heard a small sob, it was like taking a knife to the intestine. I'm so sorry, I should not have. No, you're right, I do not know enough about relationships to give advice. It is my fault. Every word you stated is nothing, however, the blunt reality. I'll attempt tougher, even though, Bella, I promise I will attempt tougher for you. I desire I may want to, said she did not ought to. I could have lied to her and informed her she was already doing a rise activity, however what right could that do? It wouldn't do anything, however assist tear us similarly apart, and I ignored my mom. I can too. I love you, Mom. I love you too, toddler. I'm sorry. Satisfied birthday. The line went lifeless before I may want to say something else, and I used to be thankful that I may be on my own for some moments. I would had too many deep conversations tonight, and my head felt love it became going to blow up if I went lower back into the birthday celebration. So I stayed out of doors, on my own with my mind and the sparkling air. Exceptional birthday ever, I whispered to myself as I leaned again towards the concrete wall. Why is that, now? A deep voice asked, and that I yelped in fright, turning to peer Seth's status before me with a cheeky grin on his face. Jesus Christ, warn a female earlier than you sneak up. I growled as I attempted to graduate my heart. Sorry, Smalls. He shrugged and took out a percent of cigarettes from his again pocket. In view that, when do you smoke? Does Sue recognize? Due to the fact I decided I desired to smoke and failed to care what my mother concept, considering the fact that while are you and Cullen again collectively? On the grounds that I determined I loved him and failed to care what everybody else idea. I spoke back and he smirked at me, lifting the cigarette to his lips and taking a drag. Bullshit. What now? I asked. I said bullshit. How is me loving Edward bullshit? I questioned, without a doubt now not within the mood to explain this once more or have any other argument. No, I trust you absolutely, which you're in love with Edward. I noticed it while you kissed. However, I say bullshit to the, I don't care what everyone else thinks crap you're spewing. He informed me as he slid down the wall and sat at the floor, patting the spot beside him. I sat down and watched the darkened clouds with my head on his shoulder. Earlier than I responded. It's now not bullshit, I actually don't care. I've recognized you for years, Smalls. I'm able to see you're telling yourself that you do not care, but while someone says something going towards you too, I assume you are not simply seeking to convince them. You're trying to persuade yourself too. I stated nothing, no longer genuinely positive if it became the truth or not. You oversuppose the whole lot. You observed not anything as straightforward, however handiest, because you make it difficult for yourself. Allow yourself love the dude. Fuck everybody else and their ideas. Approximately what you have to do together with your existence. It's yours to do something you need with. Who desires to play by means of the regulations anyway? I laughed and all of a sudden realized Seth, the child I would regarded for years like a brother, became a fucking genius. You're right. Hell yeah, I don't how a great deal time exceeded in comfortable silence earlier than I spoke once more. How come you never informed me? I asked softly. He knew what I used to be talking about. You never asked, he shrugged. I by no means concept about it. You were usually simply my Seth. I guess I didn't think you would grow up so rapid. I smirked and nudged him with my elbow playfully. Smalls, if all people requested me if I was homosexual, I would not misinform them. It is who I am. Lifestyles is precious, and time is the only issue we will by no means get returned. I can't manage to pay for to waste any of it pretending to be someone else, just to healthy their idea of best. That, short stuff, is a crock of shit. And since you're pretty old now, I'd say you better now not waste any more time sitting right here with me. Seth nodded to Edward as he came round from the side of the residence, obviously attempting to find me. I had no idea how or wherein a 17-year vintage boy were given that form of understanding approximately existence. However, I was positive as hell grateful for it. He'd made things crystal clear for me. This kid have to write a book or something. You understand, Seth. I don't assume I will waste any extra time. I smiled and located a kiss on his cheek earlier than standing up to go over to my Edward. Wherein have been you? I couldn't locate yo. My lips reduce him off as they worked to replace all of the instances I hadn't been there to kiss him, the days we would spend apart and the times I did not get to say, I like you. Seth become proper. We might wasted lots of time. However, I would not waste any more. Make love to me. I breathed as my palms tangled in his hair and Edward's eyes gazed into mine closely. His lips captured mine once more, and our bodies attempted to get closer than they already had been, leaving no area between us as we persevered our heated exchange within the center of the yard. This time there wasn't alcohol in our structures. We weren't lonely and unloved. We were not apart and I failed to care what every person else thought. We had been collectively and this went past love. Yes, we headed straight back to my place in a sort of haze. All I could focus on was Edward as we sat in the back of the taxicab. His hands were everywhere, but then again, not where I wanted them to be. He was driving me insane. I could feel the electricity pulse between us all over my body, buzzing like live wire, and yet all the kisses we had so far had been chaste and savoring. I felt like I needed his body more than I needed air to breathe. Edward, I half sighed, half moaned when his lips came to skim over my collarbone. No sex in cab. The driver called back to us, making Edward and I chuckle and cool it a bit on the touching scale. I'd never felt this way before, not even when we were married. My body actually craved him like an addict who needed her fix. Edward was like a drug to me. That's $17. The driver told Edward in broken English. Keep the change. Edward replied as he helped me out of the car. We clasped our hands together as we walked to the front door. Once we got inside, the atmosphere was thick with lust again and I couldn't stop myself from pulling him close to me and clashing my lips against his. Before I could deepen it though, Edward pulled away. Why don't we bathe together before we go to bed? He suggested in his velvety voice. Yeah, I answered in a breathy whisper. Before I could object, he swept me into his arms and carried me to the bathroom, sitting me on the counter as he ran the bath. When it began to fill and steam rose into the air fogging up the room, he began to undress. And fuck if it wasn't the most erotic thing I'd ever seen. He began first with his tie and shirt, throwing them on the floor as I unabashedly stared at his muscled chest down to the V of his abdomen. I tried not to drool, but when the pants came off it made it a million times more difficult. Like what you see, his smug voice snapped me out of my reverie. Shut up, I murmured. My face flushed as I stood away from the counter and began removing my own clothing. As I stood out of my panties and bra I noticed Edward gawking with his mouth wide open. Like what you see, I teased and his arms were suddenly around me. Always. I stood out of his embrace and stepped into the tub waiting for him as he removed his last item of clothing and sat behind me in the warm water. I could feel him pressed against the small of my back and I couldn't wait to fix that problem for him. His hands slid around my body so they were splayed out on the top of my stomach, my breast skimming his arms with every breath I took. My head rested back on his shoulder giving him easy access to my neck. I want you, he breathed as his tongue traced over the shell of my ear. I love you. I only managed to whimper in response as my eyes closed and I relaxed into him. I want you to feel pleasure like you've never felt it before. Edward, but I need, he trailed off. What? I asked. Edward, you know you can ask me anything. I need to hear you say it again. To promise me this isn't just another thing to you. I love you, I whispered as I turned and held his head in between my hands. That's a promise I'll always keep. He looked into my eyes and smiled when he saw the honesty and emotion burning in them. He kissed me softly and I knew I'd never live without him again. I was his. I love you too. He smiled into my hair and began to get out of the tub, taking me with him pressed against his chest. He sat me on the bed. We didn't even bothering to dry ourselves off. Now all I wanted to do was show him how much I loved him. Come here, please. I beckoned him over with my index finger and he smiled his trademark crooked smirk. He came to me and I managed to flip us over so that I was on top and he was below. "You're sure?" he asked and I smiled and kissed his cheek softly. "I'm sure of you. I love you, Edward." "I love you too, Bella." He gave me one last lingering kiss before he hitched my leg up slightly around his waist and pushed until we were connected. I lost myself in him until the pressure became too much and lapsed into a blissful euphoria. We just lay there for a while afterward, completely spent and sated. Edward's head was on my stomach, his body between my legs while my hands played in his hair. Every now and then one of us would break the silence and that was only to say 3 words. "I love you." Needless to say, it was by far the best birthday I'd ever had, and I'd had some pretty awesome birthdays. It wasn't about stuff like flowers or expensive gifts apparently though. Edward thought differently. "I told you I didn't want anything," I explained, as he tried to distract me by trailing kisses down my stomach. But I was stubborn as hell and I refused to let him give me anything else. He'd already given me the best gift, and that was him. "You also said you didn't want a party and look how that turned out," he reminded me, coming up so that we were eye level with each other. "Bella, I love you. I'll always want to give you everything and you'll always hate it. But just for today, please accept my gift since you've given me the greatest gift of all, your virginity." "My virginity? What do you mean?" I asked, confused. His face turned shocked and he gasped. "You mean you're not a virgin?" "I'm hurt," he joked, holding a hand to his heart. I had to laugh at his bad acting. "Now since you've broken my heart, you'll have to accept my gift." "I'll hurt you in a minute," I grumbled, playfully slapping his arm before he pulled me into them and kissed my forehead. "All joking aside, I want to give you nice things, Bella, because you deserve them. And if it helps, Alice picked it out with me so it will go with your new dress for the party." I sighed. He must have put a lot of effort into it if he went shopping with Alice. God knows how many stores she made him visit. Though I admit it made me really happy that he cared that much to go and buy me a stupid present I didn't ask for. I love him. "Okay, show it to me." He raised his eyebrows and I rolled my eyes. "The present, pervert." Chuckling, he stood out of the bed and the covers fell, revealing his naked body. Damn, no one should be that good looking. I couldn't stop a giggle from escaping my lips when I saw his cute little butt though. It was adorable. I kinda want to bite it. "Ow, did you just bite my ass?" "No," I lied and slid back under the covers, laughing. "You're strange," he chuckled, rubbing his cheek as he came back to bed and handed me a little black box. A box that looked like it could fit a ring inside. A certain type of ring. Oh God, no. I was so not getting married again. Why would he even consider proposing marriage? What would this prove? Wait, listen to Seth, Bella. Relax and everything will work out fine. This isn't what I think it is it? I asked him, praying to God he would say no. That depends. What do you think it is? You know what I think it is. I don't know what you think it is. You do know what I think it is. You know you do. I really don't know. But how do you know that I know about what you know? I'm confused, I said, as Edward smirked. Me too, I was just screwing with you that last time. I lost you at, you know. It's not a certain type of ring, is it? Edward suddenly looked a bit pale at my question. Do you want it to be? No, I answered truthfully, then continued, my voice less than a whisper as I spoke. I don't think I ever want it to be. We were both silent for a moment as I toyed with the box in my hand, avoiding his eyes. Would this be a deal breaker for him? Would I even consider marriage if it meant staying with Edward? Chill, Bella, let the chips fall where they may. It's all right, Bella, Edward shrugged, kissing me softly. I understand, and I honestly couldn't care less if we don't get married again. The only thing that really matters is that we're together. I don't need a piece of paper to tell me that you're mine. All I need is you. His words made me feel like a weight was being lifted off my shoulders. Thank you for understanding. I guess I just don't see the point in marriage anymore. Things are going fantastic the way they are. To me it's like signing that stupid piece of paper ruins everything. Maybe I'm jaded because of our marriage and my parents' marriage failing, but I think marriage has just lost its meaning to me. Who says a couple has to be married to be in love, or to have children together? It's the 21st century, for crying out loud. I rambled. Edward had a sparkle in his eye and a bright smile on his face. "You still want to have children with me?" My cheeks flushed because I couldn't believe I'd said that out loud. But when I pictured Edward, smiling with my little red-haired baby asleep on his chest like when he was holding Henry, I realized I wanted that. I wanted that badly. I wanted to watch our child grow while Edward held my hand. I could imagine both of us smiling, gray and old, as our grandchildren played around us. I wanted to have a proper life with Edward. And I wasn't the least bit ashamed. "Yes, I do, but in a few years," I quickly explained. "I don't think we should get ahead of ourselves yet. Especially in our current situation. Bringing a child into our lives while this thing with James is still hanging over our heads isn't something I'm prepared to do." "You're right, I wouldn't want to do that either." Even as he said that, a small smile lit up his face and he cleared his throat before looking away. He seemed to be choking up a bit. "Are you okay?" "Yeah," he nodded and looked back at me with shining eyes. "I just can't believe we're having this conversation. You don't know how long I've dreamed of this moment." He kissed me again and laughed softly through his nose. Suddenly I remembered the little box I had sitting in my hand that caused our whole discussion. We went a bit off track there for a moment. I laughed as I held up the box. "I'm going to open it now, so don't distract me." I opened the box and gasped softly when I saw 2 pearl earrings sitting delicately in the center. They were both hanging from a line of diamonds and there was no doubt in my mind that they were real. With the Cullens, their motto was "Go big or go home." Edward, I was speechless. He was an idiot for spending so much money on me, but I was touched that he did. "Do you like them?" he asked as he practically bounced up and down. "I love them, thank you." "Oh my God, I can't believe you did this." I laughed as I brought him to me and claimed his lips. Our kiss turned deeper and slowly Edward worked his magic on my body again. Then we were together, rocking against each other until we couldn't take any more love and collapsed in a heap. Spent and stated, we fell into a silent slumber. It was in that moment that I realized I had a future again. I woke up on Monday morning to an empty bed. An Edward-less bed. It only served to remind me how much it sucked that I had to go to work. Don't get me wrong, I loved my job, but I loved sex with Edward even more. Right now, he was in his own bed since I knew last night that I would have to be up bright and early for work. And with Edward here, we both knew that was so not going to happen. It's his fault for being so damned good in bed. With a sigh, I managed to find the willpower to untangle myself from the sheets and make myself look acceptable for work. With the help of a strong cup of coffee and some makeup, I looked as alive as I could at 7:15 in the morning. "Good morning, Bella." Riley greeted me with a bright smile as I trudged into my cubicle. A morning person, great. I did notice, however, that today he was dressed very casually. A black V-neck t-shirt and jeans were not usually his style. He was more of a suit and tie kind of person. I wondered why Kate would allow him to dress this way. She'd have my ass if I came to work looking so unprofessional. Maybe I wasn't the only one being given special treatment. I grunted in response and flopped down into my chair. "How did you enjoy your time off? A week must have felt like forever. How do you manage to save up that vacation time?" "As soon as I get it, I use it." Someone was filled with questions today and I was so not in the mood to answer. I needed at least 2 cups of coffee in my system before I was anywhere near friendly. Still, I felt bad for everything that had happened between us, so I sort of owed it to him to make an effort. It was great and I still had some time off because of that Lauren thing. "How have you been?" He looked down to his feet as he nodded. "Good, can't really complain." "I'm glad. I'm sorry we haven't really spoken much since you know, and I would really like to go back to how it was before." "You're a good friend, Riley." I smiled and he forced a smile in return. "I'd like that too, Bella." It turned awkward then, since we both didn't have anything else to add to that. "I'm going to go get some coffee." I only used it as an excuse to escape. "I made some earlier. There's still a full pot over there." Riley pointed to the staff room and I gasped as he turned his head. I noticed a long scar trail up the side of his neck and stop below his ear. It didn't look fresh, but it must have been one hell of an accident to have left him with that much of a scar to remember it by. Riley noticed my gasp and his hand instinctively shot up to cover it. "Sorry," I apologized, "that was rude." "No, We're friends and it's not a big secret or anything. The whole office was probably talking about it when I first came, since I know the Mallorys so personally. That must have been how he'd gotten the job so quick after Shelley left. I mean, the woman had barely cleaned out her desk before he was sitting at it. Still, maybe without the connections he would have been the best man for the job. Who was I to judge? My mother wasn't around as a child and my father was abusive, so well, the Mallorys took me in after this happened. He gestured to the scar. I don't want you to get the wrong idea though, I didn't get this job because of my connections. I didn't judge you. Of course not, he smiled shyly. Wait, you lived with the Mallorys. So that's why you told on Lauren that day. Kate trusts you. Riley blushed and rubbed the back of his neck. Oh yeah, forgot about that. Well, me and Lauren used to be. He gave me a pointed look and I shivered. Riley could have done so much better. Yeah, I was 16 and horny. It seemed forbidden at the time, now it's just nasty. Lauren hasn't seemed to get the message after all these years though. Now I get your joke about her humping your leg. It was good, wasn't it? He asked with a mischievous grin. I shrugged. I thought it was. We were quiet again, something that seemed to be happening a lot lately. I'm sorry you had to go through that with your father, Riley. Yeah, me too, was all he said before he left. I felt sick thinking about Riley as a kid being beaten by his father. Lord only knows what the man did in order to give him such a scar, and nobody deserved that, especially not a child. I'd say the hardest part for him is looking at his marred flesh and remembering his life before the Mallorys. Riley's story stuck with me all day, I couldn't seem to shake it. It was so sad that he'd gone through all that, but I was glad he came out on top. Still, at lunch when Rosalie called, I was thankful for the distraction. How's the day been treating you? She asked. It's been different but good. How about you? It's been good. I finally made something edible, but I don't think it counts since it was microwavable. I went to the gym and after that, I got my nails done. Oh, and I think I'm pregnant. She said it so casually, as if she'd only told me she'd gone for a walk. I was in shock. You think you're pregnant? I asked, slowly making sure I heard her right. Well, I didn't get my shot last month since Emmett said he'd be cool with having a baby. My period is late and my boobs hurt. I eat everything already, so there's no telling if my appetite has changed. It was true, she did eat everything, almost as much as Emmett. It was so unfair that she ate so much but didn't gain a pound. That sounds about right. I think you must be pregnant. I laughed at the weirdness of the situation. Congratulations, Rose. Yeah, thanks. Who knew it would happen this fast? Well, in a way I'm happy. Lord knows I'm not getting younger. Ouch, that was a punch in the gut. She took no notice of my silence and continued on. Helen Donahue, you know her. Total bitch, had a boob job last year. Yeah, she waited until she was 35 to have a child and then had to pay big bucks for a surrogate. Think of how weird it would be to know someone else is having your kid for you because you can't get pregnant yourself. That's why we didn't want to wait any longer. Her snobbish side was out in full force. I tried to compose myself and remember that I was still young and Edward and I had a lot of time before we started having kids. Bella, are you still there? You can't say that stuff, Rose. It's not a bad thing to have a surrogate and some people will do anything to have a child. It's not Helen Donahue's fault she waited too long. Maybe she and her husband weren't ready for kids, or maybe relationships weren't really working for her up until now. I argued and realized I wasn't really speaking about Helen Donahue anymore. Thankfully, Rose took no notice. Whatever. Anyway, we should have a dinner again to celebrate. Last time was fun, even though Edward was there. I rolled my eyes and smirked at her, seeming to have gotten a grip over my emotions again. Gee, how nice, I said, sarcasm dripping in my voice. Yeah, we should do dinner again. It was fun, Edward enjoyed it too. A bit too much thanks to my under-the-table teasing. He loves you, you know, she blurted randomly. Yeah, I know, I saw it by the way you looked at each other at dinner. I'm sorry I didn't trust you. So that's why she was looking at us weird. I forgive you. I know that you're only looking out for me. Good, because I like you, Bella. And I love our little heart-to-heart chats at lunchtime, they make my day. She joked and I giggled with her. Whatever, slut, I have to go. Congratulations again about the baby. Thanks Em, I love you, Bella. She rushed out and hung up the phone before I could answer. Rose wasn't a very mushy person, so I had to laugh at her awkward attempt at showing affection. "Love you too, Rose," I said into the empty receiver, smiling the whole time I said it. As soon as I stepped in the door, I got a text from Edward asking if he could come over. Apparently he missed me as much as I missed him. I knew it was sappy, but I didn't care. He got to my house within minutes of my reply and I knew he must have been on his way before I even said yes to him. Not like I was complaining though, since he attacked me with kisses the moment he was inside the apartment. "I missed you today," he breathed out harshly against my lips. I was all I managed before he had me pinned on the sofa beneath him. His hands opened my blouse and moved the material of my bra out of his way. His lips moved down to my hardened peaks, making me forget my own name as his tongue swirled around them and sucked eagerly. My hands twisted in his copper hair. "You taste so good," he groaned and I whimpered as he bit down gently on my nipple. "That feels good." "Oh, Edward, bedroom now?" "No, right here." He stood up from the couch and his hands moved down to open his belt buckle while I rid myself of my shirt. He didn't even bother removing his trousers, only pushing them below his hips, before he flipped me onto my stomach, so my butt was sticking off the side of the couch. He moved my skirt up past my hips and his breath caught when he saw me. I might have done something naughty before he got here, since I knew once he arrived it would lead to something of an erotic nature. "Fuck," he growled as his hands slid up to cup my bare ass. "You're not wearing panties." I giggled and wiggled my ass. "All for you, baby." Another growl rumbled in his chest before I felt his mouth on me. Right there. Both of his hands were firmly planted on my ass cheeks as he licked away to his heart's content and mine too. When he added his fingers into the mix, I knew I couldn't take much more without imploding. "Edward, AWH please," I cried as I buried my face into the cushion of the couch while my hands clawed at it. He stopped his ministrations and I could hear the tearing of the foil wrapper before I felt him at my entrance. His hands gripped firmly on the small of my back as he slid himself into me. "Ah, that's it," he breathed once he got all the way in. He began to move and this time, unlike the others, wasn't soft and gentle, this was frantic and needy. We had only made love before, but this was fucking. Rough and hard, raw and primal. He swiveled his hips slightly and I gasped loudly when he found the spot that made my eyes roll into the back of my head. I've been thinking about this thrust all day slam. "Oh fuck, Edward, faster, baby." His hands gripped me tighter as his hips moved with such speed I didn't even know the human body was capable of. It wouldn't be long for either of us, I knew that much. I was having a hard time remembering my name though. Yes, right there, Bella. "Oh, I'm gonna come." "Not yet, baby." I almost cried as I worked my hips against his, desperate for my release. "So close." "No, I need it," I begged. "Oh God, Bella, you need to come now," he roared as his hand snaked around and pinched my clit, blurring the line between pleasure and pain. I felt my whole body unravel in ecstasy before I sank against the couch and felt Edward's cock soften inside of me. Holy shit, Edward exhaled and collapsed against me. When his weight got to be too much on me, he rolled over and leaning against the couch for support. "I didn't mean to be so quick with you, but I really missed you today. Trust me, I'm fine." I grinned like a Cheshire cat as I climbed into his lap and kissed him passionately. "Next time, I'll be slow and gentle." Honestly, I really liked rough and hard. "You did?" he asked, surprised. I nodded and sucked on his Adam's apple because I could. "And feel free to take me on whatever surface you want because couch sex is super hot." I fanned myself for dramatic effect. "I'll keep that in mind. I'm going to get a bottle of water. Do you want one?" "Sure." I smiled and moved myself so he could stand up and fix his pants. The phone rang just as he left the room. "Hello. Ben isn't who you think he is," a voice whispered conspiratorially. "Angela." I breathed. My shock was evident in my tone. "Are you okay? What's going on?" "What do you mean he's not who I think he is?" "I didn't want to do it, Bella. He said it would help you if I helped him. I thought I loved him and that you needed, but he can't love anything. He's so wrapped up in her." Angela rushed out, her voice nothing more than a whisper. I could imagine her tears flowing as she spoke. This was the Angela I knew. She cared and she was telling me the truth. I couldn't lose her again. Angela, you have to tell me what's going on, please. I begged and all I got in return was a strangled sob. I can't. I've already said too much. I'm begging you, tell me what's going on. Did he threaten you? I can help you if you tell me. I swear, he didn't threaten me, but Ben is a liar and you can't trust him. He'll screw anyone over who gets in his way. Gets in his way. What the fuck was going on? Is Ben part of the mob too? Angela, is he Dangaro? I have to go. No, Angela, stay on the line. I'm so sorry, Bella. Stay on the lee. It went dead and I was left a shaking, sobbing mess. Edward caught me before my legs caved in and I bawled hysterically into his shoulder. All I got from that conversation was that Ben couldn't be trusted and she couldn't tell me what she knew. I'd known all that already though. The question was, what did Angela know? What happened? Tell me why you're so scared. Bella, I'm freaking out, please tell me. Are you hurt? Do you need to go to the hospital? Bella. Edward squeezed me against his chest and rocked us back and forth. He was clearly panicking but I couldn't seem to get enough breath to tell him. Shish, she called me. I finally managed to choke out. Angela, it's about Ben, isn't it? Edward, she said we can't trust him. She said he's wrapped up in Tanya. I was trying to tell Edward that we needed to stay away from Ben. That he could be dangerous. He didn't seem to understand though because he started muttering to himself ways to get to Ben. No, you don't understand, Edward. Angela said Ben's wrapped up in Tanya. I think it means they're together. God only knows why they involved Eric. You escaped by the skin of your teeth with that Russian whore before because she's convinced she loves you. If you go to Ben, someone she might be involved with, she could easily change her mind about loving you, or Ben could turn on you out of jealousy. You're walking on thin ice, Edward. You can't tempt fate any longer. We need to play it safe. I rambled. If anything, I was only trying to convince him to stay away from Tanya because I was terrified of losing him again. Edward didn't seem to like what I had to say. He stood up and immediately began pulling at his hair, trying to control his temper. So what the fuck do you suggest? I sit here and let the people I care about be terrorized for my mistakes? I can't do that, Bella. He shook his head and began pacing again. Edward, I called and held his face in between my hands. Angela made her choice. She chose Ben and she paid for it. She can leave and forget him but you can't escape this. You need to think about what this means for you. He shook his head again, but I didn't let him speak. I know it sounds selfish and cruel but it's true. Until someone makes a direct threat to us, we're not playing this guessing game anymore. We're staying out of it. Bella. No, he started, but I couldn't let him finish. The thought of being torn from him again was too much for me to bear. The hole in my chest that had healed since I took Edward back, ached at the thought. I knew if I lost him, it would rip open again and I would bleed internally. I don't think I'd make it without him. I lost you once, Edward Cullen. I will not lose you again. I won't live without you and I will certainly not lose you because of her again. I cried, tears streaming my cheeks as Edward's pained eyes locked with mine. I won't let that happen. I'm here. His arms pulled me into him and our lips collided. I felt nothing but him as his tongue moved into my mouth. Soon we were stripped of our clothing and were joined in a desperate need to feel each other, skin against skin. I needed to be connected to him and remember nothing but his warm embrace. When I was with Edward, the pain in my chest didn't hurt anymore. I'm here, he repeated with every thrust, and I lay my hand over his heart to make sure it was the truth. Every beat I felt under my palm convinced me that this was real, that he was here with me forever. But it also reminded me that I wouldn't make it if those beats ceased. We lost ourselves in those moments. But as we came apart, he whispered a promise that I knew one day he'd have to break, whether he wanted to or not. I'll never leave you, Bella. I'll never depart you, Bella. You can't promise that. At some point something will take us away from every different. It is able to be an accident, sickness or antique age, I whispered into his chest and curled further into his naked frame. Even though I died the next day, I would by no means depart you. On this existence or the next, I am yours. So we'll be collectively in heaven, huh? I notion you didn't agree within that. A unhappy expression shaped on his face. I don't. However, if I did, I doubt they'd let me in. Sure, they might. I desired to scream at him, however I wasn't within the mood to argue with him approximately it. Instead I confirmed him that even divine intervention could not prevent us from being together. So we can be collectively in purgatory. He laughed softly through his nostril earlier than looking at me closely. Nothing that has you in it can be purgatory, to me that should be paradise. No worry, no pressure, simply you and me forever. And usually, I sighed longingly, breathing in his scent as I did before I pulled him closer to me. What is that poem approximately loving someone more after you die? How do I love thee? Yeah, that one. Recite it for me, please. It sounds so much higher while you say it. I admitted as my eyes commenced to stoop with exhaustion. Anything for you, my Bella. He gave me a chaste kiss on my lips earlier than he began to speak. How do I really like thee? Let me matter the approaches. I like thee to the intensity and breadth and peak my soul can attain, when feeling out of sight, for the ends of being in perfect grace. I love thee to the level of every day's maximum quiet need, by means of solar and candlelight. I love thee freely, as guys strive for proper. I like thee purely, as they turn from praise. I like thee with the ardor position to use in my old griefs, and with my youth's faith. I love thee with a love I seem to lose. With my lost saints, I love thee with the breath, smiles, tears, of all my life. And, if God pick, I shall but love thee higher after death. I really like you, Edward. I love you too, Bella. His soft eyes narrowed at me playfully. But if you inform Emmett I recited poetry, I'll kick your cute little ass. Certain you may. I rolled my eyes at him and laughed. Okay, maybe I won't kick it. But I will do something to it, something extra pleasing. I hit him playfully and he rolled over, pretending to be in ache. Even though he couldn't keep the smirk off his face long enough to convince me that he changed into sincerely harm. He came again to me after a few minutes of goofing round and we lay together once more. In his hands changed into exactly the place I wanted to be. Even though I might needed the distance at the time, I could not accept as true with, only some months in the past, I used to be convinced I used to be better off without him, forever. I wasn't able to imagine my lifestyles without Edward anymore. And life without him regarded needless and empty. Edward, I don't assume I'm ready for paradise simply but. So we will both should paintings on staying alive until then and having a terrific lifestyles together. Of direction. Why didn't I consider that? He asked, sarcasm dripping from his voice. I nodded him. We deserve to have something so suitable, so amazingly remarkable that it'll in no way be forgotten. We already have, love, he stated to me. We've got every other and I will by no means forget about that. I smiled, an actual fucking shiny smile, as I held his hand, our hands entwining collectively over his chest, at once above his coronary heart. The ultimate element I registered earlier than sleep overtook me was Edward's soft lips on my brow. Light becomes streaming within the home windows as I wakened makeup, naked and by myself, at the living room ground. I wondered if Edward had long gone to the toilet but after I knocked and requested if he changed into in there has been no answer. When I opened the door, the room become empty. I checked the bedroom next and known as for him, however I couldn't discover him anywhere. He became long past. Without even telling me goodbye earlier than he took off. Needless to say, I used to be pissed. I knew I might be overreacting, but I thought that when our deep conversation and love making the night time earlier than that he'd as a minimum text me to mention he had to move somewhere in place of leaving without a lot as a kiss goodbye. That is so in contrast to Edward. I growled in frustration before knowing what this may suggest. Leaving without a goodbye, or as a minimum a note to inform me he had long gone, become very in contrast to Edward. He could in no way try this until something big occurred. Or he had something very vital to do this he knew I wouldn't approve of. My heart became in my mouth as I ran for my cell. Tell me you failed to, Bella. I can't Edward. You promised me Bella. I had to talk to him. I'm sorry, Edward. Motherfucker. I ran to throw my garments on and get to him before he were given himself killed. Edward had gone to him, actually hours after I would asked him not to. He'd long passed to Ben Cheney, the only guy the first begged him to live far from because I was afraid he will be risky. Edward had broken his promise to me. He in no way in reality promised you whatever my head screamed, however I used to be in too much of a panic to listen. I was out the door and in my truck inside minutes, driving like a female possessed. Eventualities saved going for walks through my head of him being beaten to a pulp by way of Ben or having a gun pulled on him at the same time as Tanya fucking watched. I used to be freaking out and my panic handiest expanded after I realized I had no clue where Edward and Ben have been. My palms were shaking and my tears started to blur my imaginative and prescient. I couldn't inform where the road was, and I knew I had to forestall. I pulled over to the facet of the street and allowed the whole lot out. I had no concept in which I used to be. I would simply gotten in the truck and driven frantically in my state of panic. Now that panic had subsided, anger took over. Pick makeup, I chanted as I known as his cell telephone. Choose makeup. Pick out the fucking smartphone. Makeup Edward. Hello, that is Edward. I cannot select make up the phone for the time being, but if you go away your name and range, I'll get back to you. I fucking hate your guts, Edward Cullen. I screamed, rage taking over me. I felt betrayed, despite the fact that he'd by no means genuinely promised whatever. I had assumed he cared sufficient to respect my needs and no longer do something make-up-silly, for example, going to peer someone who was immediately involved with Tanya Denali and who we have been warned to live away from. How ought to you? You are a liar. You are a fucking liar. I hung makeup and the tears that normally followed a breakdown rolled down my cheeks in streams. I hugged myself right into a tight ball, my knees pressed in opposition to the guidance wheel whilst I attempted to let go of the anger and harm I had in me. A few things are less complicated stated than executed. He was in all likelihood going to get hurt and I used to be powerless to forestall it. I would beg Edward, gave him a large speech and every purpose now not to go to Ben. But none of it were given via to him. He'd long gone in opposition to my desires, he'd endangered himself and now not once concept about me or his circle of relatives when he made this sort of reckless decision. What if he'd gotten killed? My phone buzzed next to me and that I wiped my tears as I checked out the caller identity. Incoming name Edward Cullen. A part of me refused to reply, the opposite part of me needed to, so I may want to make certain he became okay. I couldn't make up my thoughts and shortly it rang out. A bleep informed me he'd left a message and, earlier than I could prevent myself, I played it. Do not hate me, please, don't hate me. I'm sorry. I realize you failed to need me to head, however I had to go. I needed to. I am exceptional, not anything's wrong with me, I swear. Ben only desired to talk and he's not a chance. Bella, I swear it's just like Angela said. Ben's now not risky to us, please choose makeup, communicate to me. I know you are indignant, however I'll make it up to you. I love you, Bella. His voice sounded so pained and I couldn't concentrate to any more. I wiped my puffy red eyes, became off my cellular phone and drove home. Emmett, I asked when he responded. Good day Bella, you okay? You sound makeup. I need you to name Edward and ask him if he's okay. Challenge had gotten the better of me ultimately, however I couldn't bring myself to name Edward myself. I felt betrayed. Nevertheless, I loved him and that I needed to realize for a fact that he turned into safe. I couldn't sit down here and not know if he turned into downplaying an injury or if he actually become pleasant after he admitted he'd talked to Ben. What passed off? Where's Edward? Are you hurt? Emmett's voice immediately turned in the opposite course of being concerned and affectionate. It turned into difficult and involved, as though he'd been awaiting a phone call like this for some time now. I ought to pay attention. Rosalie in the heritage, stressful to understand what changed into going on and if I used to be K. Not anything came about. I lied. He's in the doghouse for forgetting dinner reservations and I have not spoken to him, seeing that yesterday. Would you thoughts calling him and seeing how he is? I want to make him sweat for some time, so he's going to research his lesson. I used to be getting true at lying, but I hated it. Emmett breathed a sigh of relief earlier than he chuckled heartily. Phew, you had me involved there. Yeah, I were given you. I have been there before with Rosie, but do me a choose and don't make him sweat for too lengthy. He is one too of himself while he's now not with you. He did not understand how horrific his words made me sense. It become like a razor reducing into my pores and skin. Yeah, I managed to choke out earlier than I hung makeup and returned to regardless of the hell I was doing. Wallowing, being irritated, I slightly had time to put down my house phone back onto the receiver when someone began banging at my door. I had a great concept who it changed into. I understand you're home. Bella, open the door. Edward's voice pleaded from the alternative aspect. I knew I wished to speak matters out with him, however at the moment I was pissed. Past pissed. I wanted this time to be indignant and get the whole thing out of my system. Then, we should talk to each other politely. Then I knew I should store myself the fear and be sure I would not kill him. I do not need to look you right now, Edward. I shouted lower back, now not commencing the door due to the fact I knew seeing him might weaken my solve. Bella, do not close me out, please. I like you. I understand I am a make-up fucker and also you failed to need me to head but Ben called me. He asked me to fulfill with him so he ought to provide an explanation for everything. I knew if I had informed you, you would have begged me to live. It become critical, crucial, extra essential than the promise you made to me. I reduce him off. I failed to promise something. He argued, his hand pounding the door in anger. I'm not having this communication right now with a door between us. We each need to calm down and I make O's makeup you must pass domestic now. I'm no longer leaving until you communicate to me. I'm not makeup to fucking speak to you. I want to make up earlier than I kill you myself. I informed him definitely because I was at the fucking edge of going crazy. He sighed on the opposite facet of the door. I am coming again here the next day morning earlier than you visit work. We'll speak me about this then. Promise me. I snorted at his use of phrases. I refuse to make any guarantees, when you consider that apparently promises don't mean something to you. After I became my cellular telephone lower back on, I groaned after I saw all the texts and calls I'd received. What's sincerely taking place? Edward's a spoil. Emmett. Why is my bro all brooding and sullen? What? I don't care. I am betting it is his fault. Are you okay? XOXO Alice. Edward's a fuck, however he is torn makeup about regardless of the hell he did wrong. Make up the fellow a break, doll. He loves you, Jasper. Emmett stated Edward fucked makeup. UK. Rosalie. You may not answer so please call me. I simply want to listen your voice, Edward. I am so sorry, Edward. What will it take for you to speak with me this night? I am going out of my mind, Edward. I really like you. I understand I fucked makeup but I will make it better. I am calling you presently to inform you the way sorry I am and what sort of I love you. Please select makeup the cell phone, Edward. 1 missed call from Edward Cullen. 2 ignored calls from Edward Cullen. 3 overlooked calls from Edward Cullen. I threw my smartphone on the ground and glared at it. I used to be hoping that if I glared difficult sufficient it would magically spoil into 1 million portions and be long past forever. Why did I even purchase a cellular telephone? My life become less difficult without it. Edward was worrying, even though, and that I felt awful. I wasn't going to leave him. I was in too deep to do this. However what he did nevertheless stung. Correction. It harmed like a motherfucker. He knew how I felt about what he did but he did it besides. Tears accumulated in my eyes and that I willed them away. I was ill of crying. I was exhausted, hungry, I needed to shower badly and my eyes stung. I had spent the entire time crying and I questioned exactly what number of tears I had left to shed earlier than my eyes ran dry. I decided to get my sorry ass off the floor and get my shit together. I'd communicate to Edward tomorrow morning and we might be great. He'd say he become sorry, inform me he wouldn't do it once more and we would cross lower back to normal. Nicely every day for us. I got inside the shower and washed away my fears and anger. I had to remind myself that the whole thing could be better the following day. Bump, bump, bump. My eyes heaved open and my head managed to detach itself from my pillow. I peeked at my alarm clock. 4:29 a.m. What the fuck? I stated to myself, although it possibly didn't sound coherent at all. I groaned as I rolled out of my relaxed, heat mattress and hissed because the bloodless air hit my skin. Did I point out I'm no longer a morning person? My eyes wouldn't open greater than halfway as I stumbled to the door and searched for the key. Bump, bump, bump. Hold on already, I shouted, my voice full of sleep as I unlocked the door to have arms wrap around me and lips assault every inch of pores and skin they could reach. I was approximately to scream after I found out who it became who nearly jumped me. Oh God, I'm so sorry. I'll do something you want. Please don't be mad anymore. You do not know how concerned I've been. He breathed into my hair and his palms hugged me tighter. Had it not been 4:30 within the morning, I'd have given him some smart-ass remark approximately how he had accomplished sufficient to fear me for an entire life over the root of our dating, However, like I stated, 4:30 within the morning. Alternatively, I inhaled his mouthwatering scent and hugged him back, burying my face into his chest. I notion you have been going to go away me, he stated into my hair, his voice best above a whisper. I would never depart you. I love you, but I nevertheless make up you are a dick for doing that to me. Oh, and you're now not getting laid anytime soon, I advised him, although it was muffled because my face became buried into his shirt. He chuckled softly, but it got here out like a sigh of relief. I'm able to take delivery of that. It is actual, and I recognize I am a dick for doing that to you. I recognize had it been you, I would have long gone out of my mind with fear. I'm so sorry, Bella. I was released from his arms, but his arms quickly located mine. I regarded makeup to look. He was carrying the same clothes he'd worn while he got here right here days ago. He looked exhausted, with darkish bags below his eyes. See why I waited to have this communique. Had you stated that the day gone by while I was pissed, I'd have ended makeup yelling shit at you that I failed to imply. Now that I have cooled off, I'm able to inform you that I take delivery of your apology. I stood on my tippy toes to kiss him. Thank you, he whispered against my lips. Now, how a lot sleep did you get final night? He smiled and appeared away bashfully. That's what I idea. Come on, I should be make up at 6 so we are able to sleep till then. Why'd you come so early anyway? I couldn't wait to any extent further. It become killing me, he admitted, and I shook my head at him for being so candy in a virtually make-up form of manner. We lay beneath the covers in mattress and he snuggled up to me, so we have been spooning. I smiled mischievously as an concept came to me. Howdy Edward, I am totally telling Emmett you recited poetry. I can't believe you instructed him, Edward grumbled as he stepped into his denims. He became still sulking because I might informed Emmett about the poetry he'd recited to me. What can I say? I'm a woman of my phrase, I giggled, searching again at him in the replicate as I threw my hair makeup right into a ponytail. Alice became taking me for a girly day at the spa so I could get pretty makeup for the Christmas birthday celebration tonight. I had no idea why my boss thought we must keep a Christmas birthday celebration in November, but she confided me that, to her anyway, this became the first-rate time for one. Nonetheless, Kate instructed me that it became important for my profession that I am going this night. If I desired to get back to wherein I used to be before I would gotten fired, I needed to be organized to schmooze and kiss some ass. So, I am definitely in no way getting laid once more, Edward requested, pulling me from my thoughts, as he walked slowly towards me. Whoa, gradual down, I said. You're now not getting laid whenever quickly. In no way once more is a without a doubt long time. I am a girl I've needs too. It's far a long term, he whispered as he stood behind me, his arms pulling me to him while his lips attacked the side of my neck. God, that feels desirable, actually long term. Hold your cool, Bella. Do not leap your smoking warm boyfriend even as he tries to seduce you. Edward, I breathed as his palms commenced to transport similarly make up my body. I knew I needed to prevent this quick or I would deliver in. You're most effective torturing yourself. I'm not having sex with you. He chuckled darkly into my neck. Correct element, I am masochistic. I pondered the concept of a quickie after I remembered why we were not having sex in the first vicinity. No, we are not having sex because you're being punished for making me worry, I said defiantly, proud that I had the restraint to mention no whilst my frame was screaming, do it. However, Bella, he whined. I'm so sexy. We have not had sex in 3 months. It has been 2 weeks, Edward. Nicely, it feels like 3 months. I plastered a sympathetic expression on my face. My poor baby, perhaps I need to help you out. He nodded eagerly. I grinned wickedly as I picked makeup his right hand. Edward's hand. Meet Edward's dick. Edward's dick. Meet Edward's hand. I'm able to inform this could be the start of a beautiful friendship. I laughed hysterically as I skipped out the door. They're already best pals, he shouted and observed me out of the room with an adorable pout on his face. A few human beings are in order that clean. So are you excited for tonight? Alice requested as our nails have been being buffed and polished. Yeah, I bet so. I shrugged. Geez, Bella, comprise your excitement, she spoke back paradoxically. Sorry, I realize I'm being a total buzzkill, but I do not know. Alice looked at me in shock for a second. You're feeling it too? What? I requested, bewildered. Bella, I wasn't going to mention something, but I've been having these bizarre emotions approximately you going to this celebration. It is a strong feeling too. I do not assume you and Edward must cross tonight. Damn Alice and her all-seeing visions. She regularly had these unusual emotions about matters and that they have been not often incorrect. She once had a sense that Edward and I'd get married, in the end that got here proper. She had some other feeling that she could meet a guy in a bar we were going to that would be her soul mate. She met Jasper that same night time. Then she continually had to have a unique feeling before she named any of her youngsters. It become odd and I would by no means wager towards her before. You're certain? I questioned. Due to the fact if I selected now not to visit the celebration tonight it became the quit of my career with Kate's employer. I'm now not 100% certain. I have a sense that something's wrong, however then once I try and dig similarly into this emotion, it stops completely. It is like someone has stopped something to do with you lifeless in its tracks. I cannot simply give an explanation for it. Her voice become full of confusion and that I ought to see her stare go clean for a second earlier than she shivered and got here again to me. Now I used to be involved. With all our stuff happening, which Alice wasn't even completely aware of, it might be a honestly weird accident if she simply had a vision of something going wrong. We actually could not afford any more awful success. I will speak to Edward about staying domestic. If he thinks I shouldn't move, we're going to live, I told her and she nodded in settlement. I used to be more than a bit freaked out approximately this entire issue. Promise me in case you pass that you may preserve your mobile on you at all times. Alice puzzled, her voice full of concern. Agree with me, I'm certainly freaked out. I do not make makeup, I'll move anywhere without it for a while. Edward changed into making lunch for the two folks after I got to his dad and mom house. Esme and Carlisle weren't around when I arrived. I figured they ought to have gone out, knowing I might be coming over. They were appearing like children due to the fact Edward and I have been together, and what irked me the most about the entire scenario become that it wasn't Edward they were worried about. They have been involved about me getting hurt. That they had literally deserted their personal son and selected to worry about me instead while, frankly, I failed to need their assist at all. I was the most secure I might be with him. Bella, love, do you mind putting the table? The salad is nearly prepared. Edward smiled and kissed my lips chastely. I used to be placing the plates down on the desk once I began to talk. So, I was speak me with Alice inside the spa. Oh yeah, did you each have a pleasant time? He requested. Yeah, it became outstanding. Besides, we have been speak me about tonight and she stated she had a feeling. His eyebrows raised and he stopped what he changed into doing to take a look at me. Like one in all her emotions, a vision. Yeah, she stated it became as though something turned into off. She instructed me I shouldn't cross this night and I was questioning it does not rely if we don't move. I can constantly locate any other activity some other place. I shrugged, seeking to make it sound like no massive deal that I used to be going to get fired again. Edward concept about it earlier than he shook his head. No, you love your activity. It took you see you later to get one and on this financial system, it is going to be even harder next time. Except, now and again Alice receives it incorrect. Do you take into account whilst she predicted that Emmett and Rose could by no means get married? And when she said we'd have a kid in our first 3 years of marriage? We made rattling certain that prediction failed to happen. We want to visit this birthday party and the whole lot might be first class. I promise not anything will harm you, I won't let it. Whilst Edward saw that, it did make me sense like we have been making something out of not anything. I mean Alice did make a incorrect prediction occasionally and she or he did say she wasn't sincerely sure this time. It's likely not anything. Yeah, you are likely proper, I agreed. I absolutely couldn't have enough money to lose my process again, especially over something that we're now not even positive about. It became just a feeling in any case. We completed lunch and that I washed our dishes even as he dried them. It turned into nonetheless early by the time we had the whole thing wiped clean makeup, so we determined to observe a movie for some time, seeing that we were alone in a big house and did not have to get ready until 7. We watched the newest Jane Eyre film. Well, I did, whilst Edward did the whole thing he may want to in and try to seduce me, trying to convince me to head make upstairs with him. I ought to have had numerous self-control due to the fact boy did that guy have recreation. I was happy the film I picked didn't have any sexual scenes, because I was past became on without it. I failed to want something else to weaken my makeup, no matter how a great deal I desired to jump his bones. You know you want to, Bella, he whispered deliciously into my ear, nipping it lightly while he became there. I bit down on my lip and tried to forestall the whining noise come from my throat. It failed to help in any respect. See, you need me as a whole lot as I want you. My eyes flickered to his crotch before I could prevent myself. Make makeup into me and I'll make you feel so top. I shook my head stubbornly. He chuckled in return. You're so fucking cussed. Experience what you're doing to me, what you have been doing to me for the beyond 2 weeks. My hand had a mind of its very own because it grazed the denim of his jeans. Edward struggled to hold his breath even while his eyes clouded with lust. Jesus Christ, why became I even bothering to fucking fight this? I clearly wanted it. My God, I'm cussed, I yelled as I stood over him. Edward checked out me in surprise. You higher get your ass make upstairs and fuck me into oblivion in 5 seconds or matters may not be pretty. His mouth popped open slightly before he grabbed my hips and slung me over his shoulder caveman style. You are the sexiest girl inside the global. At 7 that night, after my hair in B6F D8 D88 D79 Ed 1018 DF 623 DOB 49 E84 E7 changed into carried out perfectly, I used to be equipped makeup to don my get dressed for the night. I slid it over my frame and marveled at how the soft cloth felt in opposition to my pores and skin. It honestly turned into a lovely get dressed. The bodice turned into black, low reduce, and sleeveless. It turned into easy, yet fashionable however then a blood pink bow with a diamond-encrusted brooch within the return, made it truly best for tonight. My hair turned into flowing down one side of my head in chocolate curls and the earrings Edward had gotten me for my birthday accessorized the dress flawlessly, just as he'd promised me it might when I'd freaked out over them. And even though my locket failed to truly go with the complete outfit, it was something I wasn't inclined to element with, if simplest for a night. My black structures and clutch finished the whole ensemble perfectly and that I could entrust the darkish-haired beauty staring again inside the mirror became actually me. Wow, Edward breathed as I got here out of my bedroom. His eyes seemed to rake over me like mine did with him every time I noticed him in a healthy. He'd long gone for a black suit with a crisp white blouse and skinny black tie. He appeared like sex on legs. You're severely the most beautiful female I have ever seen. Ditto. I spoke back and he raised an eyebrow. I intended man and ruggedly good-looking, proper. It is extra like it. Edward drove Carlyle's Mercedes. He stated Alice insisted since the black vehicle might suit our dark clothes. It wasn't as though all people turned into going to look the auto from the celebration, so I failed to see why it made that much of a distinction. Halfway to the party I observe a black sedan following our automobile. While Edward pulled in to get gasoline, the car waited too. While we pulled out the automobile accompanied again. I waited for some time until I used to be 100% positive it become following us before I sighted it. Edward, there may be a vehicle following us. I blurted, searching again to see it turned into nevertheless trailing us. He seemed inside the reflect for a moment earlier than looking returned to me. Do not worry approximately it's not anything. But, I did not have lots time to think on it earlier than the valet become taking the keys and ushering us into the party. I wasn't about to allow the entire vehicle issue drop though. Edward and I might be discussing it later. The occasion become in full swing when we got inner. It become being held in a lavish ballroom in Seattle's nicest lodge. A band became playing jazz music in a nook whilst the employer sucked as much as the high and effective of Washington. It made me marvel how the hell I ever landed this activity. Are you okay? Edward asked as he exceeded me a pitcher of champagne. You appear anxious. If it's approximately the car, it was. Bella. A voice called, slicing Edward off. I grew to become to look Kate jogging closer to me with a tall darkish-haired man by means of her facet. You're right here. She smiled, even though it sounded pressured. Isabella, the person greeted, shaking my hand and Edward's. I am Leonard Mallory. Great to fulfill you. Leonard Mallory. I could exceedingly see the resemblance between him and Lauren, but I might idea he and Kate had been divorced. Rumor had it that they could not stand to be in the equal room together without creating a spectacle of themselves. Shelley had informed me, earlier than she'd left, That one time Mr. Mallory had to be forcibly removed from an event whilst a combat the Kamei couple were having got out of manipulate. You too, I responded, shaking his hand wearily. Kate's eyes watered slightly as my hand touched his. I wonder what the hell is going on. Enjoy the night, Ms. Swan. You never recognize when it may be your ultimate. Mr. Mallory said as he grabbed Kate's arm and all however dragged her away. Changed into it simply me or became that truly bizarre. I requested Edward. Extraordinarily weird. Live far away from that guy in future. He gives me the creeps. Believe me, staying away from him may not be a problem. We mingled plenty after the incident with Mr. Creepy and Edward failed to leave my facet the entire time. At some point of the night time I saved a lookout for Riley, but I didn't see him. I wanted to be on the lookout, because if he did come over, I wanted to warn Edward so he wouldn't lose his mood and get me fired. Edward still wasn't cool with the whole Riley telling me he cherished me issue. I clearly could not blame him even though I would freak out if it changed into the opposite way round. Who are you looking for? Edward asked as I did a test of the room one more time. Riley. I haven't visible him around. Your buddy, he spat the word. Sure, my buddy. He is an amazing one too, so be first rate when we see him. He is a virtually exact man once you get to understand him. I regarded again to peer. Edward's face had long gone pale white. His eyes bugged out of his head like he'd noticed a ghost and he appeared completely petrified. Don't do that. There may be no competition or something it is you are worried approximately. I am yours. I placed a hand on his chest and regarded makeup in subject as I felt his coronary heart begin to race below my palm and his respiratory quicken. Edward. I regarded around the room to where his gaze was locked on and failed to see anything out of the everyday. But Edward became as nevertheless as a statue. It became like he became in shock. Edward. What's occurring? Edward. I shook him gently. He whispered something, however it became too low for me to make out. His hand latched onto my wrist and clamped down so tightly that it turned into painful. His face was nevertheless faded and he gave the impression of he was approximately to faint. What? I requested once more, my respiration too becoming erratic. Run. We want to run. He growled and stored a hold on me as he rushed me through the crowds, spilling beverages and pushing people in his haste to get out. I observed Leonard Mallory smiling evilly as he sipped champagne across the room. Something wasn't right. As soon as we might escape the ballroom, Edward turned into incomplete blown panic mode. His arms have been shaking and he became walking so fast while pulling me that I used to be having problem preserving makeup along with his pace. He didn't appear to be being attentive to whatever I stated, alternatively he kept murmuring things to himself. We reached the last door of the hallway and Edward ripped it open, almost pushing me internal. The sign simply stated we weren't intended to be there. Basement garage. Staff simplest. You are actually fucking scaring me, Edward, I cried as mascara ran down my face in streaks. We need to get out. Stay beside me. Don't you fucking circulate, okay? K, he shouted, grabbing my wrist tighter. Okay. He flicked open his phone as he pulled me around the massive area. It turned into empty, except for a few boxes and chairs stacked here and there. The partitions and floor have been gray and the simplest mild within the whole location have been the few dim lighting fixtures hanging on the ceiling, the rest of the region become dark. It turned into eerily quiet and that I knew something bad become happening, I simply didn't recognize what. Fuck, Edward cried, slamming his cell phone down as he searched for the go-out door of the room frantically, throwing bins and chairs round at the same time as murmuring, no fucking sign cannot name Ben, I want to get her out. Why'd I must get out? Edward. It went silent for a second before the noise of a door slowly squeaking open filled the room. Edward pulled me in the back of his again and I swear his whole frame shook in terror as footsteps observed us in the room. Edward, 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 a voice taunted, a familiar one. You honestly idea you could get away me, failed to you. Stay behind me and do as I say. If something occurs to me, run as rapid as you can out of here. Go away me in the back of and visit my father, Edward breathed, his voice low and raspy. No Edward, I cried, confused and scared. There's no time, simply do it. I like you, Bella, and I'm so sorry, he sobbed, tears streaming his cheeks. A determined emerged from the shadows and that I gasped loudly while his face got here into view. Things began clicking into area. I was ill to my stomach after I found out how near him I might been all this time, ignorant of what risk he posed. How ought I've now not seen all of it earlier than. The scar at the aspect of his face wasn't his father's doing in any respect, it become Edward's. I whipped out my pocket knife and reduced his face. It left him with a scar, however it failed to stop him. Why Mr. Mallory and Kate had been performing bizarre and the way he'd been located next to me in paintings. It became so we should become close, to make his twisted recreation extra exciting. He hadn't been born a sick fuck, nor had he been one earlier than he turned into positioned into foster care, it turned into found out conduct. Properly, the Mallorys took me in. He advised me of the way he had grown makeup with abusive foster mother and father. It changed into him all along. Riley's mouth twisted into an evil smirk. Sorry doll, but my call is James. Riley's mouth twisted into an evil smirk. Sorry doll, but my name is James. What? Edward asked, his expression ill and his voice weak, as he looked at me. But he already knew the answer to his question. He was here all along. Honestly, Edward, James sauntered over to us slowly, each step he took was another inch. Edward pushed me behind him. Did you really think Tyler wasn't going to sell you out the moment I got to him in Atlanta? Edward saw nothing, and either did I. Yep, he sure did. Tyler sold you down the river in a heartbeat. It didn't save him though. James had killed Tyler, he was admitting it. But it didn't make sense to me. His death had been ruled as suicide. Tyler had overdosed on prescription pills. Tyler killed himself. I shouted before I could stop myself. Bella, Edward warned. James gave me a sweet smile that made me sick to my stomach. To think I'd trusted him. It made me want to puke. Do you think the police force in Atlanta are above taking bribes? Because, if the bribe is generous enough, I'm sorry to tell you honey, they're not. I squeezed Edward tighter to me, realizing this could be the last few moments of our lives. James was about to take everything from us, everything we had worked for and fought for. He was going to make sure Edward suffered for something he didn't even do. Fuck you, James, I spat. Bella, don't be like that. We had some good times together, didn't we? Like every morning in the office when I would bring you coffee and pretend that you were my everything and that no one would ever compare to you. I was good at it too, wasn't I? I was good at being in love. I was good at it because I've felt that way before. Fuck you and Victoria, Edward roared, his hands behind his back pressed something cold into my hands. I hid the handgun he'd given me behind me while Edward inched forward towards James. I didn't even like her and she still begged me to fuck her. James's face was livid, his nostrils flared, his eyes narrowed and his hands clenched into fists beside him. Edward was trying to provoke him. He was sacrificing himself to save me. If James attacked him, I could have the chance to run, maybe shoot him, but it would be too late for Edward. She was a miserable little whore, only staying with you for the drugs but meanwhile fucking everyone behind your back. One night I came home and she was lying naked on my couch, high as a kite, and begging for it. Begging for me to give her everything you couldn't. Shut the fuck up, James finally screamed. If you had any idea how many times I had Bella over there alone. That pisses you off too, doesn't it? I asked myself why you didn't kill her. I mean, you had her alone so many times, you had so many opportunities. It was because all along you wanted to make her love you, wasn't it? I'll kill you right now. You wanted to make her leave me, like Vicky left you, and then you'd kill her. You wanted to make me feel what you felt when you lost everything permanently. I will destroy you, but no matter how much you promised to love her, brought her coffee and played your sick little game, you were nothing compared to me. Vicky thought so too. That's what crawls under your skin the most, isn't it? That not one but two women you were close to wanted me more. Edward continued to taunt, a smug smile on his face, but in his eyes I could still see fear. I'll show you Mr. Fucking Perfect. James held a gun up to Edward's head. But Edward didn't seem frightened of death at all. I, on the other hand, was terrified. No, stop please. I yelled and Edward's eyes widened to tell me to shut the fuck up. I couldn't let him die for me. I didn't have it in me to do it. James's smile widened and his eyes lost all traces of anger and became bright again. That's right. Love conquers all, doesn't it, Bella? You don't want Edward to die because he is your world. He pressed the gun to Edward's head harder, his eyes staring straight through Edward's. And you, Edward, were so depressed when Bella left you because of all those other women you fucked. No, Edward breathed, seeing something I didn't. I'm only with Bella because Victoria's dead. I loved Victoria. We were going to move away together after she left you and start a family. We W her. I don't believe you, James sang, a bright smirk forming on his face. He began pushing Edward back towards me, the barrel of the gun still pressed against his head. You were only with Victoria because Bella didn't want you. You're wrong. You love Bella. You and Bella are going to move away and have kids together. Every sentence James said, his voice rose to the point where he was shouting. Edward's breathing picked up and his chest heaved, his eyes darting to me ever so often. That's a lie. Nope, I don't think it is. Bella was the answer to everything all along. The answer to all my problems. Why didn't I do this before? Anyway, fuck you, Edward Cullen. Suddenly the gun was away from Edward's head and pointed at me. And goodbye, Bella Swan. No. Bang. Edward's wide eyes stared at me, full of tears and regret. His lips took mine slowly and I forgot everything else in the room. Was I dead? His mouth separated from mine and his hand touched my cheek softly. Every touch showing me how much he loved me. But I couldn't register what had happened. Not until Edward's eyes went wide and he fell to his knees before me. Then onto his stomach, where I could see the blood that stained his white shirt. And the gaping hole in his back where he'd been shot. Edward had jumped in front of me. He'd saved my life, but at the same time ended it. Anger surged through me as I watched blood pool around the man I loved and held up the gun that was placed in my hands moments ago. James's eyes became wide as I aimed towards his head. He hadn't been expecting that. I closed my eyes and then, bang, bang, bang. 3 shots had been fired and rang out around the room. But I hadn't even pulled the trigger. FBI, Ben shouted as he flew through the door. He'd hit James solidly in the chest 3 times and he'd flown back into a pile of chairs as blood splattered the walls around him. He was dead instantly and I was fucking glad. I didn't waste any more time thinking about that scumbag. I was turning Edward over in a heartbeat and breathed a sigh of relief when I saw his eyes flutter open. His breathing was ragged and his body was convulsing. This wasn't good. Get an ambulance. Ben cried to someone outside the door. Lauren, do it now. Edward, I sobbed as I held his head in my lap. Stay with me, okay. Bella, he breathed, his voice barely audible. Paradise, he smiled weakly, tears spilling from his eyes and his teeth stained with blood. You're not dying, I cried, holding him tighter to me. You can't leave me, you promised. Baby, lock it open, lock it, he begged, his body convulsing faster and harder in my arms. I'll do it when we get you to the hospital. Now, he growled, though it was anything closer to a whisper. I couldn't deny him, not when he was in so much pain. With shaky hands, I took the small key that was on a chain around his neck and brought it to the locket he'd given me months ago, when we'd only just begun again. I opened the wings and pressed the key into the center. It turned and opened with ease, letting 2 golden rings fall into my lap. Our wedding rings. I laughed as the tears rolled down my cheeks freely. I love you. Always. His smile was pained, his eyes dim and watering. And forever. Edward's body relaxed in my arms, his chest ceasing to heave. Edward. Nothing. No, Edward. Answer me. Silence. He wasn't breathing anymore. Baby. Answer me. Edward. Suddenly arms grabbed me and pulled me back away from him while I thrashed and struggled, screaming and crying, in my attempt to get back to him. Bella, they're paramedics. They can help. Ben's voice spoke into my ear. No, Edward, calm down, they're here to help. So am I. They'll do all they can to save him. I could hear the doubt in Ben's voice. He thought it was too late, that my Edward was gone. Impossible. He's not dead, I chanted and wailed into Ben's shoulder. He's not dead. No heartbeat. If we don't hurry, we'll lose him completely. A paramedic shouted over his lifeless body. He's not dead. 1, 2, 3, they called as they pumped down on his chest. He's not dead. Clear. 2 pads went on his chest and Edward's whole body jolted. He's not dead. Clear. He wasn't dead. He couldn't be. I wouldn't be able to stand here alive if he was gone. My whole world would just shatter and I would cease to exist. He wasn't, could he be? We have a heartbeat, waiting. It sucked. Especially when it's the person you love the most that's on the operating table. The doctors said they had to remove the bullet that was lodged in his back. They also said they had to stop any internal bleeding, since he'd lost a lot of blood. They told me that Edward only had a 50-50 chance of surviving the surgery. That meant there was an equal chance he wouldn't. Everything was so fucked up. So many things were clicking into place and I couldn't even begin to deal with it. Bella, a voice asked after the doctors had checked me out. Ben, we need to talk. He gave me a small smile. If you're up for it. I said nothing, but he came into the room and sat beside me anyway. I'm sorry about Edward. He's not dead. There's nothing to be sorry for, I growled back at him. Look, you wanted to tell me something. Get on with it, he sighed. My real name is Nahuel Benjamins and I work for the FBI. I was undercover to take down a large Russian family who have been the head of crime in America for the past 10 years. Edward was directly involved with some of the members of this family, Tanya Denali, Irina Denali, their father and their godfather, Eero Vulturi. I was so close. I had files that included evidence of laundered money, corruption, drug dealing on everyone but the girls. I knew if I didn't take them all down at the same time, then my efforts would have been useless and I'd be a dead man. They'd kill me before the day was out and be back on the streets in no time. So I tried to get information from Edward, since he seemed close to them at a point, and then I met Angela. I loved her. I loved her so fucking much but used her for so long that it got too much for her and she left me. Edward eventually figured everything out. He's a smart guy. We met up one day and he told me what he knew. I filled him in on why I was trailing him and he told me what happened to him. He told me what they did, and they're all going down for it, Bella. I gasped. Tanya and Irina were going to prison for what happened. Edward would finally get justice. You're sure? I am. I have everything I need. Ben Nahuel whatever, assured me. But Eric is your best friend. He's dating Tanya. I asked Eric to help me, and he agreed. We dressed him up and put him in Tanya's line of fire so we could keep an eye on her. He's rich, so naturally, she couldn't keep her hands off him. This case has been my obsession for the past 10 years, I wasn't going to let her slip through my fingers again. So then why were you there tonight when all this happened? You had what you needed, why did you stick around? Ben nodded. Edward and I made a deal. I would protect you from James until he was caught and in return Edward would testify and press charges against Irina and Tanya. It's the only reason he told me what happened. My eyes watered once again. Edward had literally done the most difficult thing he could in order to protect me. He'd let someone into his fucked up past and look where it got him, shot by some psycho and fighting for his life. You did a shitty job of protecting him. I spat. I was trying to get to you both. But Leonard Mallory had guys to keep me away. I had to deal with them first. It was Miss Mallory who actually saved your life. Kate, I guessed. No me, a voice said and I turned to see Lauren smiling sadly behind me. I'm so sorry, Bella. Lauren, I questioned, shocked. Why would you? You hate me. I don't hate you. I never did. I was trying to make you see what was going on. I've grown up with James and my family all knew why he was coming back. My father encouraged it, he always has, he made James this way. And my mother encouraged it because James has his hooks in her so deep. But I couldn't let him hurt you, so I tried my best to make you leave without giving anything away. I was dead if they knew I was trying to help you. Lauren admitted, you were trying to make me quit. All those times, the yelling, the demanding, the rudeness. Lauren had been trying to save me. Yeah, she smiled. My father turned James into his clone when he fostered, and eventually, adopted him. They're both evil and I've been trying to get away from my family my whole life. I'm sorry and thank you. Both of you. I told them sincerely. They'd done all they could. Only time would tell if it was enough. I was dragged back to the present by familiar voices. Emmett and Rose were the first to arrive and I was guessing that was because Emmett was Edward's emergency contact. Rose's eyes were rimmed red but Emmett was in a worse state and completely broke down when he saw me covered in his brother's blood from head to toe. Oh fuck, he's dead, isn't he? Oh my god, he's dead. Edward, oh my fucking god. He had to sit down because he couldn't breathe. Emmett, he's alive. For now. What? Oh please, he's alive. He finally breathed, his pale features coming back to life a bit more. His heart stopped for a couple of minutes but the paramedics revived him. He's in surgery right now, there's a 50% chance he'll survive. I breathed, my voice emotionless but my eyes still swelling with tears. I played with the rings in my fingers, clutching Edward's the tightest. My hope was beginning to dwindle. He'd have to be superhuman to survive this. Rose's hand held mine and she smiled meekly at me. I wished I could smile back to thank her for supporting me, but I couldn't. I could only nod my head and watch Emmett crumble again. And a 50% chance he won't, he added and put his head in his hands. I have to call Mom and Dad. I'll do it, sweetheart, Rose offered as she used her other free hand to rub Emmett's back. No, I have to do it. He marched off with his phone in hand and Rose came back to me, enclosing her arms around me and pulling me onto her chest while I cried all I had left to cry. He's so sweet. Edward didn't deserve this. He doesn't deserve to die like this. He should grow old with me, surrounded by our grandchildren. Not on an operating table surrounded by people he doesn't know. Bella, shush, we're not going to lose him. He loves you too much to give up. Emmett came back, his eyes stained as red as mine. They're on their way. Alice is with them and she's a mess. She says she had a feeling that something bad would happen. She's been on edge all night. I cried harder. She warned us not to go. Emmett stared back at me, dumbfounded. She warned you. She warned you and you still went. Emmett, stop. This wasn't her fault. Rose warned him. He wanted to go. I told him we didn't have to but he said Alice was wrong sometimes and that we'd be fine. So I agreed with him. And now look where he is. It's all my fault. My head fell into my hands as I sobbed. No, Bella, no. Rose hissed. This is not your fault. It's that scumbag James's fault. He shot him. He's the crazy one and he paid for it. He's dead, it's over. When Edward comes out of that room, you can start your life again. If he comes out of that room, Emmett mumbled and Rose shot him a glare. He's going to make it. Keep saying that to yourself. Without hope we have nothing. He's going to make it. He's going to make it. I whispered and so did Emmett. Come on, louder. He's going to make it. Rose shouted. He's going to make it. He's going to fucking make it. He's going to fucking make it. I roared and turned to see a doctor standing in the doorway. You're the Cullen family. We all nodded. I have some news for you all regarding Edward, though you should probably sit down. Sit down. What? Was it bad news? He couldn't be. No. Oh my God. I whispered and the room went black. Bella. His voice both whispered and echoed throughout the room. Bella. Edward. I breathed, my head pounding and my heart thumping. I glanced around but recognized nothing. Everywhere I looked seemed to be bright white and shining, only making Edward, who stood before me dressed in the same colors, seem all the more angelic. In fact, even he looked unnaturally pale, like he was made from the palest marble. I looked over him thoroughly, ignoring the thumping in my head as I appraised him. You're here. You're alive. I smiled and ran to him, only to have him rise into the air like smoke when I touched him. Edward. I felt a breeze flow past me quickly and I turned to see him behind me. His face suddenly became somber. You shouldn't be here. It's not time. Not time. For what? He looked at me with a sad smile and I understood what he was saying. No, Edward. If you're gone, I don't want to go back. I'm supposed to be with you. It's where I'm meant to be. Are you ready for this to be the end? For this to be the twilight of your life, even though your life has barely started? You're ready to give up everything. It's not the end, I argued. It's the beginning. You can't give up on life yet. Then neither can you. His eyes stared at me intently before crystal teardrops sprung in his eyes, shining like diamonds in the light. I don't want to be anywhere without you. I love you. Bella. Mrs. Cullen, can you hear me? A voice spoke, trying to tear me from Edward. Through my confusion I wondered why the voice kept calling me Esme's name. You have to go, Edward sighed in a bittersweet tone. No, I want to stay. Don't leave me. I won't. I'll never leave you. Mrs. Cullen. Edward. Keep fighting. Stay strong. I screamed though the room began to dim. Bella. The ghostly voice whispered pleadingly, almost like he was begging me not to leave him. Edward. I found myself murmuring as my eyes focused on the light shining above my head. Mrs. Cullen, we're getting you some water. Why don't you try sitting up when you're ready? The man leaning over me said as he helped support me so I could sit up. Everything came rushing back to me as I was handed a cup of water and took a tiny sip. I had been in the waiting room when the doctor had come in to update us about Edward and I'd collapsed. My breath caught again as I looked frantically at the doctor who was about to either save me or kill me. He's alive, I choked out, my voice shaky. Mrs. Cullen, why don't we wait for a moment until you're feeling better? Then I'll update you on your husband's condition. Husband. I'd forgotten I'd told them I was still Edward's wife. I knew if I told them I was anything less I'd be kept out of the loop. Details about patient's health were shared only with immediate family, per hospital rules. I didn't think I could have handled not knowing. I'm fine now. How is he? I urged, putting aside the water to listen to what he had to say. The doctor sighed and went to close the door as I took in my surroundings. I was in a tiny room, all the walls the same bland shade of gray. They must have carried me in here when I fainted. Emmett and Rose weren't here though. Did they know if Edward was alive or not yet? The doctor sat down across from me. I'm afraid I have some bad news. I sat beside his body, bruised and beaten. Unmoving, yet still he was beautiful. He was different than he'd been in my hallucination, not pale or unscathed, but his face was peaceful in his slumber. It was as if he knew James was gone and that I was safe. I was wondering how our lives had gone from amazingly perfect to utterly devastated in one night. How one sick man had changed all of our plans with the pull of a trigger. Esme sobbed quietly in the corner to my left, Carlyle clutching her to his chest as if he could take the pain from her and store it inside himself. Emmett looked on in dread at his brother's still body, his eyes occasionally looking at me before he huddled closer to Rose. Alice was on her knees praying to a much higher authority than the doctors in this hospital. I'm sure Jasper and the children were doing the same thing at home until the babysitter came. Then Jasper could be here to support his wife and brother-in-law. While I sat there motionless, heartbroken and eyes swimming, with Edward's hand in mine. Mourning. I mourned the life we'd never have, the one that was never meant to be. I mourned the bronze-haired children that would never see Edward as their hero or adorn my knee and call me Mother. I mourned Edward's life as it had been and how it could have been now that James was dead. I'd longed to see Edward unburdened, untroubled and without worry. I wanted to look into his eyes and see nothing but sheer happiness. I mourned for a lot, but a bright smile took over my face when I remembered that I had a lot more to be thankful for, just as the doctors had said. He was alive. That was all that mattered to me. Though the word haunted us still and loomed in our midst, we would deal with it together if the time came. If all we had was each other, then I knew I had everything I needed. I love you, I whispered in his ear and kissed his cheek. I am afraid I have some bad news, though I'm glad to be the one to tell you he's alive. The doctor announced. I choked out a breath I hadn't been aware I was holding. Relief flooded through me and I felt like the weight that was crushing my shoulders had been lifted. He'd fought for us. He'd made it. Thank you, I wailed, smiling and snorting as I shook the doctor's hand. Mrs. Cullen, although he survived, it was by a very narrow margin. We lost him for over 3 minutes on the operating table. That's a very long time and something we are not comfortable with. He's on life support and, while he may be alive, he's in a critical condition. He's suffered a lot of internal damage, so we had to put him into a medically induced coma while he heals, and the doctor, whose name tag read Dr. Cyrus Bloom, trailed off and I knew there was more he had yet to tell me. It's okay, I can handle it, I lied. I was already crumbling to pieces. This is the man I vowed to love in sickness and in health. I need to know. Cyrus sighed and I knew whatever he said was going to break my heart one way or another. I think he knew that too, but I preferred to just get it over with. Mrs. Cullen, I'm afraid the bullet may have damaged your husband's spinal cord. There is a strong possibility he could be paralyzed. I sat there in shock, unmoving as the news settled in. If he is, it would be from his waist down. That would not only mean he couldn't walk again, but that conception would be impossible. My eyes closed of their accord. I was devastated, crippled with pain. However, I couldn't help but think that it really didn't matter. All I needed was Edward. It's okay, I murmured. We'll adjust if the time comes. I love him. He's all I need. As long as he makes it out of here alive. The doctor nodded and produced a small pitiful smile. My heart hurt as I rehashed that conversation. I knew it didn't really matter to me whether he was in a wheelchair or walking, I'd love him regardless. But it hurt me to know that Edward would always have a reminder of how close he'd come to death, thanks to James. And it also hurt to know the emotional strain he'd be under after losing his ability to walk. If he lost it, we still didn't know. I'm here for you, Edward. When you wake up, we'll all be here for you. Hours of waiting for Edward to wake up turned into days of waiting. Days turned into weeks. Then before you know it, it had been a month. Still no Edward. How are you holding up, kiddo? My dad asked, his hand coming to rest on my shoulder. For the man who was against Edward from the start, he had really been my rock through this. He'd held me as I cried and stayed with me in the hospital. He'd forced me to eat, bathe and sleep, reminding me that I wasn't the one in the hospital bed. You're no use to Edward dead. Go home and rest, he'd say, and I'd realize he was right. I needed to stay strong for Edward. He'd need me when he woke up, more than he ever had before. Barely. I am absolutely drained and I know it won't get any better until he wakes up, I answered, tired of lying to everyone and saying that I was coping. Clearly I wasn't. Honestly, how could anyone cope at a time like this? I just took every day at a time. I was basically living on hope. There was nothing more I could do. I'm sorry, kiddo. It'll get better though, you have to stay strong. I'm going to go home and have a nap, get some food in me that's not hospital crap. I'll be back again this evening. As my dad was about to walk out, he threw a small smile at Edward's sleeping form. You love him, don't you? I blurted. My dad seemed caught off guard with my question. Yes, he's like a son to me. His eyes watered but he shook it off and grunted, it broke my heart when he broke yours. He was like the son I never had, but you are my baby. When he hurt you I knew I wouldn't take his side, no matter what. I felt betrayed. He swore to me that he'd take care of you, that he'd never hurt you, and I believed him. I hated that son of a bitch for a long time. But when you called to tell me he'd been shot, and was in critical condition, I was devastated. I'd never heard my father speak so much in his life, let alone about his feelings. I couldn't believe what he was saying, but finally I got a better understanding of him. Thanks, Dad. I know Edward cares about you too. I love you. Love you too. He threw me a small smile before leaving. I was alone in the hospital room with Edward. Sitting with him again, I ran my fingers through his soft and fluffy hair. Since he was sleeping I'd started using conditioner in his hair. He'd never done it before, even though I'd begged him to, so I just thought, when in Rome, and went for it. It was a good decision on my part. It felt like forever since I'd seen the bright emerald of his eyes or laughed at one of his crappy jokes. I'd never felt this lost before. I missed him. I missed talking to him. I missed watching movies wrapped up in him and listening to him complain. I miss you, I told him. A noise sounded from somewhere, a low rumbling. What the fuck was that? Bella. A voice croaked harder and I shot back in my chair on instinct when I realized where it was coming from. Bella. Oh my God. I breathed. Edward, baby, can you hear me? My hands touched his face as he struggled to control his arms. Don't move yet, okay? You're safe here with me, just let me get the doctor to check you out. Bella, he shouted, flailing more. No, Edward, I'm staying right here. Feel me, baby. I held his hand and guided it up to my cheek. It seemed to calm him down significantly. I'm right here. I leaned over, not breaking my connection with him, and pressed the call button. The doctor and staff were up in minutes, ushering me out of the room as they took care of him. Bella, I could hear being screamed as I was made to wait outside. The agony in his voice made my heart break all over again. He sounded so scared and disorientated. Bella, I didn't want to waste any time I had with him, so as soon as they sent me out I was dialing Carlisle's number. Bella, is he okay? What's going on? Carlisle's frantic voice answered. He's awake. A cry escaped him as he shouted for Renesmee. We'll be in Seattle as fast as we can. Bella, I heard Edward roar as the nurses told him to calm down. I didn't give a shit anymore if they told me I couldn't be in there, he needed me. I'm coming. I raced into the room, pushing through the nurses who were trying to make me leave once again. His eyes were still closed and he was panting like he'd run a marathon. This was to be expected though, he was probably still high with the amount of drugs in his body and disorientated from being unconscious for so long. Bella, he cried again, tears streaming his face as different hands prodded and poked at him. He seemed to be trying to open his eyes but wasn't having any luck. I'm here, Edward, I love you, okay. Nothing's going to happen, you're safe. My hand clutched his and he breathed a sigh of relief. I kept fighting, he slurred. I gasped in shock. I couldn't speak. I'd asked him that in my dream, I'd asked him to keep fighting. Edward, keep fighting, stay strong. It was a dream, wasn't it? Maybe there was paradise for Edward and I after all. I know baby, I know. What's going on? Is he okay? I thought you said he was awake. Emmett boomed as he came bounding in the door. Strangely he was alone. I'd expected Carlisle and Esme to be with him, Rose at least. He must have been close to Seattle when I called. Shish, I hissed. He's only sleeping. Apparently being in a coma for a month doesn't really count as rest. A month. Edward's voice croaked, thick with sleep. I was out that long. Emmett's mouth pulled up in the corners at the sound of Edward and his eyes filled with the tears he'd kept inside for over a month. Yeah, it was a long time. And don't do it again, you have no idea how boring it gets without you and your constant bitching. Sorry Emmett, he breathed and winced. Don't strain yourself, baby, I told him and kissed his forehead. He smiled sleepily at me but it was pained. I think it's time for your meds. No, Edward argued, it's not that bad. Besides if I take them, they'll make me drowsy and I'll miss mom and dad. I couldn't argue with that, though I was concerned that he was in a lot of pain. All right, but promise to tell me if it gets too much. Promise. I bent down slightly and closed my lips over his. His head tilted up slightly as if trying to get closer to me. But when he groaned in pain against my lips, I pulled back, terrified I'd hurt him. I'm fine, I'm fine. I'm going to go call Rosie. I'll be outside, Kay. Emmett touched Edward's shoulder briefly, looked into his eyes and smiled happily, like Edward was his favorite person in the world. In a way, I think he was. That left Edward and I alone for the first time since he woke up and was coherent. He seemed to look me up and down before speaking. You look tired. Please tell me you've been taking care of yourself. Are you eating and sleeping like you should? Not staying here with me the whole time. I laughed the first real laugh I'd laughed in days. I missed you. You have no idea how crazy I've been. I smiled, but a sob slid out at the same time. It was a mixture of both, and I couldn't decide which was more evident. I'm sorry for everything and I understand if you want to leave. That pissed me off. You think I'd wait, cry and nearly waste to nothing beside your bed for 4 weeks if I was going to leave you the moment you woke up. I'm sorry, but you're stuck with me. I held up the wedding ring that was now placed on my left hand again. Till death do us part, buddy. His eyes lit up as he took in my ring and he smiled the first real smile he had smiled since he'd woken up. You're wearing your ring. I shrugged and tried to play it cool. You're wearing yours. He looked down and noticed the ring on his finger. The one I sort of put there. That's why they kept calling you Mrs. Cullen. I didn't say anything because I thought they just assumed. He paused for a moment. And, I guess, I missed hearing it. A lot. I missed it too. I missed you more though. You had me worried sick. His smile turned into a small frown. We were pretty close to the, till death do us part, thing. Yeah, too close. It's never going to happen again. I promised and brushed my fingers through his hair. We were silent for a moment before Edward spoke. Is he dead? I knew he was speaking about James. Yes, he took 3 shots to the chest. He was dead before he even hit the ground. Ben Nahul did it, you know. He raised an eyebrow. Yeah, he told me everything after it happened. I was trying to protect you. You did and you're such an idiot. Who the fuck do you think you are taking a bullet for me? Huh, of all the stupid, dumbass things to do and you chose that. I can't believe you'd put me through all of that. I nearly died worrying about you. Don't ever do that to me again. Hiccups broke my words because of all my crying. Still so fucking stubborn. I love you, he smiled. Still so fucking reckless. I love you too. I kissed him then because I couldn't resist. I had to because although I'd kissed him moments ago, we'd missed out on a lot of time. Time that I planned to make up for. My lips clashed with his and he sucked my bottom into his mouth as I tried to find any possible way to get closer to him. Bella, yeah, I'm ready to tell them. I froze. Surely he wasn't talking about Tanya and Irina, I asked, as he nodded. I'm here for you. We'll do it together. Thank you. For loving me no matter what. He kissed me again, soft and sweet, before his parents burst in the room, a mess of tears and joy as they cradled their son, who seemed to be unbreakable. He'd risen from the dead twice after all. Everything had calmed down after everyone had hugged and kissed Edward to their heart's content. But we were all avoiding the elephant in the room, one which Edward himself wasn't aware of. He had only been fully awake and coherent for about 2 hours now. He was also in too much pain and was too weak to even consider moving, so he hadn't been able to tell if he could walk or not. We certainly weren't in a rush to let him know that being paralyzed was even a possibility. Carlyle offered to be the one to break the news to him since everyone else said they didn't have the heart to do it after all he'd been through. But when I saw the sheer pain in Carlyle's eyes, I knew I couldn't allow him to do it. No father should have to explain to their son why he'd never walk again. So I said I'd do it and Carlyle never looked so grateful. Esme stood over Edward, her lips attached to his forehead. Get some rest, sweetheart. We'll be back later tonight. We love you. Love you too, Mom. Everyone said their goodbyes and exited the room except for me. I refused to leave Edward's side and assured everyone I'd be staying nights for the duration of his hospitalization. I was walking back over to him after shutting the door when he spoke. Bella, yeah, baby, why can't I feel my legs? I had to grab the wall for support, so I could keep myself from falling. The doctor's suspicions were right. He wouldn't be able to walk again. Although I had been preparing all night what to say if we got to this point, I couldn't speak. It was like the wind had been knocked out of me. Instead, my silence told him everything. Oh God, he whispered. That sucks. He laughed humorously, but it turned into a deep, troubled sigh instead. That really sucks. It doesn't change anything. I tried, but he cut me off. Of course it does, Bella. I'm a cripple. What about the life we had planned? We can still have it. I told him and rushed over to hold his hand in mine. Of course, it won't be exactly what we expected it would be, but I think we'll have an amazing life still anyway, just the two of us. His face suddenly grew pale and he looked like he was going to be sick. Just the two of us. Meaning, I looked down, knowing that if what I'd already said hadn't broke him, this definitely would. Having children isn't an option for us anymore. Silence. Edward was void of any emotion. Fuck, he roared suddenly, his hands clawing at his hair as angry tears streamed his face. Fuck, Edward, calm down, it's okay. Fuck, oh fucking fuck, oh my God, Edward, I don't care. I don't need anything or anyone else but you. How can you not be angry? He choked out, his hands still tangled in his hair. I've taken everything from you. I've wasted your time for 8 years before and now I've wasted another year. I couldn't believe what he was saying. Could he truly believe that I could be angry for something that was completely out of his control? And how could he think that he'd ever wasted my time? I could never be angry over this. You've taken nothing and given me everything in return. For 9 years you've shown me love like no one else, and sure, you hurt me, but it showed me how much I took love for granted. Edward, I'll never take it for granted again. What we have is so special, we can't lose it. I won't let us. He whimpered as my hand touched his cheek. You'll love me still, even like this. You're the same to me, you'll always be my Edward. Always and forever. Our hand touched and his fingers intertwined with mine. Promise me, he whispered. I promise, Edward. I love you. Everything we'll go through will be worth it. You're worth it and we'll do this together. He smiled small and kissed the back of my hand before bringing me onto the bed so I was lying beside him. Our cheeks touched and our tears mixed while he held me tightly in his arms. This was the boy I used to share baths with as a child. This was the boy I used to make mud pies with when I didn't want to play dolls with Alice. This was the boy I hadn't realized I loved until college. This was the man I married and the man I divorced. This was the man I chose to love again. This was the man who took a bullet for me. Now, this was the man I was going to spend the rest of my life with in total and utter happiness. No matter what stood in our way. Forever starts now. We will continue in next part.